Has the internet killed Protestantism?
I think that if we in the Catholic space think our job is to use the internet to destroy Protestantism, we're never going to succeed. Instead, show them how being a Catholic is going to make you a saint. We don't have these divergent issues on things like whether or not you can lose your salvation or justification by faith or a faith alone. If you want to know what the church teaches on a given subject, you can find the answer, and every Catholic has to agree with that when it comes down to the dogmas of the Christian faith.
But do you think with the online fighting, we sometimes overplay the divergence within Protestantism and the unity within Catholicism?
Wow, that's a great question.
Thank you so much for watching Pints with Aquinas. Before we get into the interview, I'd like to ask you to please consider subscribing. Over 58% of people who watch this show regularly are still not subscribed, so please do it. It's a quick, free, easy way to support the channel. We really appreciate it. It's so good to have you back on the show. Thank you for agreeing.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I can't go anywhere without several people coming up to me saying, that interview that you did with Matt on Pints with Aquinas has changed my life.
Oh, come on.
I'm dead serious.
Wow.
I've never seen a reaction to a video that I've been a part of more than, and it's not just people going, oh, that was fun to watch.
Right.
It's people whose lives were changed, Matt. They were converted. I've had so many people tell me that. Even to this, it's been over a year since we recorded that.
Yeah.
And people continue to come up to me every men's conference, every parish mission, every time I go somewhere, it's that video changed my life, brought me into the church. So thank you for doing that. I mean, it's an honor.
I was the conduit. It was you and your beautiful wisdom and passion for the faith, I'm sure, that set people on fire. What kind of stories are you hearing when they say they're just converting, or?
They're converting. It's a lot of people who were thinking about Catholicism, and our story just it just intersected with them in a way that was powerful. I mean, I just had Mike Pantile down do an interview for my channel.
Great.
And he said the same thing. He said, my wife and I watched that video so many times, and she actually sent me an email telling me, his wife did.
Karen?
Yes, telling me this. And I've just been hearing that over and over, and it has to do with conversions, you know?
Praise God.
Which is so cool, because I think when we first start these things, it's a lot about conversions, but then I think sometimes we can think, well, we can talk about other stuff too.
Yeah, or we wonder, is this even having a real life impact?
Yeah.
Mike's great. Mike does a really good job. For those who haven't heard of him, Mike Pantile, I've had him on the show before. People should go check out his channel. He does a really good job at speaking about masculinity, but in like a calm, charitable, loving. I mean, he's full-throated in his approach, don't get me wrong, but he's just a good dude.
And he's a humble guy too.
Yes,
so after we finished our interview, we went to our gym. We have a Catholic gym in our town that we go to, St. Michael Barbell Club.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And Mike knows the owner of that gym through online stuff. So Mike went down there, and
did he do his classic deadlift?
He did. He walked in and he saw the markers on the wall that had the numbers of the records, and he's like, okay, well, it was 700. I got to do 710, and he did it twice. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. Or 705. I don't know what it was. It was something like that.
Strong dude.
Yeah, but it was great. So thank you for because there's a lot of stories like that based on our last show. So thank you for having me back.
It is amazing just how, I mean, thank God for YouTube that allows this to go far and wide. I had some other woman on my show a couple of years ago, and she said that she was doing street preaching in some Asian country, if memory serves, and that people kept coming up to her there saying, I just saw you on Pints with Aquinas. Isn't that nuts? But it does make you realize I need to not screw this up, at least intentionally. I have to be on guard against myself so that the things that we're putting out there are actually beneficial for souls and that help them come into a relationship with Christ and the church. And I want to try, please God, allow me, and I'm sure you have the same prayer, and hopefully every YouTuber does, don't let me get in my own way. Let me just point to you and the church.
That's the name of the game with this internet stuff. It's so easy to get in your own way, both from a tactical standpoint and also just from a spiritual standpoint, because we're flawed human beings. We have egos, we have pride, we have insecurities. And nothing brings that out in a more profound way than the internet does, or even in a more simple way than the internet does. Sometimes it's profound in that we say, oh, I made a really bad argument that wasn't, nuanced enough or wasn't deep enough. And then sometimes it's just simple, stupid things like, hey, your hair looks stupid, idiot, and you go, Why are people thinking about that?
Yeah.
So we have to always remember, what is our purpose? What is our goal with what we're doing? And the good and the bad thing about YouTube is you can do anything you want. And oftentimes the battle is over what we really want.
Yeah. People talk about audience capture.
Yeah.
Have you struggled with that in your own history of making videos, or at least became aware, oh, wow, I don't want to fall into that?
Absolutely. I struggle with it constantly because there's so many things that you can think about in this internet space. Who is my audience? Am I speaking to non-Catholics? Am I speaking to Catholics? Am I speaking to people who are thinking about becoming Catholic? And the reality is, the answer is probably yes. So when you put out content that isn't very, very narrow in scope, you're going to draw lots of different people, and some are part of your audience, and some are just sort of drive-bys. And sometimes it's the drive-bys that are the ones that hurl the most, because they're like, hey, I don't really like this, blah, and you have to go, well, that's not you're not my target audience.
Yeah.
But when we hear that criticism, sometimes we might be tempted to go, oh, well, if I'm getting a lot of criticism that my arguments are too low tier or that they're too over my head, then we might be tempted to change our approach based on those comments, when really what we need to do is stick with what the Lord put on our hearts in the first place.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Well, and then you've gone from, do you still do the Rosary Crew?
Every day.
Okay, still do that. God
Over
bless
5
you.
years now.
Look, I'm all for praying the Rosary every day, but have you ever got to a point where you're like, all right, I'd like to just pray the Rosary with my wife without 1,000 people watching me? Or no, because you feel called to do it?
Well, yes, I have. And that's something that I wrestle with too, is there are days when I just go, I don't want to do this in front of other people.
Yeah.
And so what I try to do in those situations is do another rosary that's not in front of other people, because sometimes it's hard to really focus on prayer when I'm also running a live stream with 3 monitors, and I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, I'm on 5 Facebook pages, I'm on YouTube. People are throwing comments at me, and my dog's upstairs barking at the Amazon guy, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So I have struggled with that a little bit, but I've never struggled with it after I'm done. It's like this. The struggle to do it sometimes is there, but once I've done it, I never go, man, that was a disaster.
Good. Yeah. No, I think back to that audience capture idea. I think that, if people are watching right now and they have a YouTube channel, I think it's important that that question bothers you. I think if you thought to yourself, no, why would anyone even be concerned about only putting out videos that their tribe likes? If you're not even aware that that's a thing, then you might be too far gone. But I think it's always got to be this tension.
I think so. If you listen to people who are really, really successful at YouTube, sometimes you get contradictory advice. Sometimes you get the advice, especially when you're first starting out, it's all about, okay, know your audience, give your audience what they want, narrow it down to a specific niche of content and be that expert in that field. And then other times you get advice that just says, forget all about the audience. Just do what you love. Be authentic. Be real.
Yes.
And sometimes those two things don't match up.
That's totally true. And I got to be honest, I'm definitely more of the second category.
Just be yourself.
I'm sure you're the same, but I get multiple emails a day from people asking to be on the show or telling me that they've got an author they want on the show. And I don't take any suggestions anymore because there's just too much. So rather, instead of having someone who might bring in a bigger crowd, I'd rather talk to my mate Keith, who also brought in a great crowd last time. But I'd rather just talk to the people I want to talk to.
Yeah, that is a great way to look at it. I think it's just really hard,
and you're far less likely to burn out if you're doing this, because, like, I was legitimately excited to have Keith in the studio today to chat with you.
Thank you,
I'm
Matt.
looking, I like this.
Yeah.
And if I just had somebody on who I didn't really care about, but I knew that the audience would like, it would just be more tiresome. It'd be a sludge.
I agree with that. I started doing in-person interviews about not quite a year ago, because I was getting burned out on the split screen virtual thing that we all had to do during COVID.
Yeah.
But as you well know, it's really a big investment of time and resources to do this in-person stuff. Mm-hmm. You have to have another person helping you run things. You have to pay for travel. You have to do all these things. And it's been a lot tougher, but I've just enjoyed it so much more sitting down with people and sharing these conversations. But it's also made me that much more intentional about who I want to have sit next to me. Because there's really very little buy-in to just hop on a Zoom call with someone and talk to them for a half an hour about the latest book they wrote. And you don't even know about it, right? You don't care. But are you going to do that when there's a big investment of time and resources to bring that person and sit across from me for a couple hours? And I've just had so much fun doing that. And, you know, I feel myself moving more in that direction. But at the same time, I also go, okay, well, this video didn't do as well as this one. Why was that? I really liked this conversation, you know? So I still find myself falling into that trap of trying to figure out
Definitely
what I'm doing with it.
Yeah, I had John Eldridge on the show.
Love John Eldridge.
He's wonderful. And it did well. And I thought it would do well. I thought it would do better because he's so terrific. And then I had another fella on the show who converted from Islam, and that has exploded. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. People like that. I think there probably is a humility, too, to wanting to use the platform the way it works.
Yeah.
Like there could be, I mean, there can be pride anywhere, right? So if you say, well, I don't even care how this works, I'm going to do what I want. Okay. But actually it could be humble to be like, all right, so if this sort of content is working, people seem to want this, I'm gonna put the kind of thumbnail I think that YouTube wants. And there can be humility in that too, I suppose.
I think it's a balance like anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's a healthy balance to have in a lot of areas of life, to think about what do I like versus what is the mission. And we have to even remember in the context of our YouTube channels, it's a bigger mission than I just want to make stuff that I like.
Yeah, amen. And that we're all on team, you and I, and Lila Rose and Trent Horn and these other people, we're all on the same team here.
That's something I really want to talk about.
Okay,
because,
let's do it.
Because I think that's a perspective that is sorely lacking in the Catholic online space right now, is that sense of we're all on the same team.
I want you to dive into this, but before you do, when did you become Catholic again? What
2017.
year? Okay, so were you watching Catholic content?
I was. There wasn't as much as there is now, obviously, but yes, I was watching Catholic content. I was listening to Catholic content.
Was there a lot of drama and infighting?
No.
Interesting.
There wasn't any of, and the truth is, if there would have been,
yep,
I think that could have been detrimental. I don't want to say I wouldn't have converted, because God was doing that regardless. But I think that it would have made it more difficult, because I would have, instead of looked at the Catholic content on the internet as a single body, a single voice helping me to learn about the church, I would have had to try to figure out which voice I was allowed to listen to and which voice I wasn't allowed to listen to. And if there were multiple voices that I was benefiting from, but they were talking bad about each other, I think that would have been problematic, because then I would have felt the pressure to pick a side and said, oh, I have to go with these people. But I was getting fruit in my life from both of these voices, or all these different voices. So that's the distinctive thing, that was that back then, if there was, I didn't know about it. Let me just say that. Certainly not to the extent that there is today.
Yeah. All right. Well, then what are you seeing today?
Well, what I'm seeing today, first, I'm seeing a lot more Catholic content, which I think is great. But what I'm also seeing is a lot more tribalism, and a lot more gatekeeping, and a lot more of a tendency for people to try to figure out who's the good voice in this space and who's the not so good voice in this space. And the criteria is often, well, that person said one thing I don't like, or they're associated with someone I don't like, or I don't like the way they look, or I don't like what they do, or I don't like the mass they go to, or whatever. So I just throw them out completely, and anybody associated with them. And unfortunately, what I'm also seeing is a lot of people who that's the center of their content is criticizing other Catholics. And I on one hand, I think it's healthy for us to be criticized, and it's healthy for us to have accountability, because that's one thing that is sorely lacking in this space, is there's really no accountability for any Catholic content creators. There's no one above us that says, no, you can't do that. We have to do that to ourselves. But what happens oftentimes is we do that to each other, unsolicited and publicly. So I think that that's become more of an issue lately, because it works. I mean, and I know you've talked about this before too. But the reason why people do that is because that's what And when I say works, I mean works in building your audience. But the way I look at it is that's not the goal. If the goal is primarily to build an audience, then okay, you could build an audience doing lots of different things. But if you're seeing yourself as some sort of representative of Catholicism to the world, or someone who's trying to help people grow in their faith, then I think you have to take a step back and examine yourself and say, is the central point of my content to help people grow and to be helpful, or is it just to build an audience?
Yeah, I guess both could be true, can't they? I mean, this is something I wrestle with. I mean, I don't think either of you would want to say under no circumstances should one Catholic YouTuber ever criticize another public Catholic. I'd like to maybe lean in that direction, but the classic example I used was the McCarrick scandal, right? But we could bring these other things to light, or maybe there is someone who's teaching things that are contrary to the faith, or just get it plain wrong. And they're public. It's not like it's a private thing you're bringing to light. It's this public thing. So how do you find that? How do you think people should try to find that balance?
Well, I think it's tricky. I think that public error and public scandal, it's okay to talk about that. But I think that there's another layer here that I'm seeing. I guess I'm not really talking about like the, criticizing McCarrick or the huge public scandals of, Catholic leadership that have happened over the centuries or whatever. I guess I'm talking more about personal criticism of other Catholic content creators and saying, hey, this guy or this girl, I don't like them, and, tune in at 6 so I can tell you why.
Okay.
And they did this, that's wrong. They did that, that's wrong. And then it just becomes this, WWE kind of, video where it's back and forth, and now the goal is now to destroy that other person or to bring everybody away from that person rather than to bring people to the faith. Mm-hmm. And I think that plays to our kind of our dark tendency that we have of self-righteousness and pride, to where I can say, well, why don't your disciples wash with unclean hands? Or washed hands. Why don't your disciples eat with unwashed hands? Or why did they do this? Or why do you do that? It's always these questioning of motives, and we never give anybody the benefit of the doubt. I think that's one of the biggest problems in this space is people don't like to give other people the benefit of the doubt. They always assume when a content creator is more successful, they always assume it's about money. Oh, he or she's just doing that for money. When they're younger and starting out, it's, well, they're just doing that to try to clout chase somebody else or whatever. So it can be a variety of things, but at the end of the day, we're judging people's personal motivations and intentions. I think it's totally okay to talk about ideas and to talk about how we can all do things better, and maybe this way of talking about things is better than the other way of talking about things. But here's what I'd like to see. I would like to see, if random, Catholic creator out there sees something another person does that they don't agree with or they don't like, that they find a way to support them and help them to get better, maybe privately, or if they don't, if they have a relationship with that person. Mm-hmm. But here's the other thing. I never see videos about someone saying, oh, let me tell you why I love what this other creator did. Let me tell you what they went on this podcast and they knocked it out of the park with I saw this debate and it was amazing. Kudos to this person. We don't see that. We only see the criticism, never the praise. And
great point.
I feel like we need to be more supportive. We need to point out the good things that people are doing and build up everybody. Because again, if we are all part of the same mission, part of the same team, then that's a better way to build that team. But it's completely counterproductive if all we do or all we see is people being torn down. And I think that we would see a lot more people rising to the occasion, or, a high tide raises all ships, right? Mm-hmm, so mm-hmm. I think we have to do the best we can do, and I think we have to do a good job. But at the same time, we have to recognize the way to motivate people is to praise them and point out the good things that they're doing, not just constantly tear them down.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
It's such a great point because, I guess I've been wrestling with this. How do I know when criticism is okay? And But it's such a great point. It's like, yeah, but criticism gets clicks. Like criticizing people, calling them out publicly gets clicks. You know what doesn't go viral? Humility.
Yeah.
And what doesn't go viral is a video where you just talk about how great this individual did on this or that podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. I was just looking up some awesome, there's a lot of really good people doing some really good work right now. Sips with Sarah is someone I thought was doing good. Who else is doing good in the spirit of calling people out and saying good things about them?
Yeah. Well, I'll just tell this little story real quick about this. So I went out and did a sort of a debate with a group in Colorado Springs. They invited me to come out, and it was like a debate on authority with a Protestant, sort of a pastor. And you know, I'm not really a debater, but I feel like I have done that a couple times, and I'm sort of like stepping into that world a little bit. So while I was out there, they said to me, they said, "Hey, we have James White coming out here, and we can't find someone to debate him. Are you interested?"
Okay.
Now, let me tell you something. James White is sort of like, you know, he's the Apollo Creed of Protestant debates, right? If you want to build a name for yourself, debate James White, right? And they said that to me. They said, you know, are you interested in doing this?
I know where this is going because I just had him on my show. But
okay. So anyway, I said, I thought about it for about 3 seconds, and I'm like, I don't think that's for me, but I will find someone, you know. And I had a couple people in mind, but I suggested Alex, you know, and I didn't know whether he would do it or not, but I threw his name out to them because I thought, you know, I think this guy would be really good at this. And so I called him and talked to him about it, and he was like, I would absolutely love to debate James White, Keith.
I felt like a woman talking.
So I said, okay, I'm gonna throw your name out. I asked him first. And, you know, we all know the story. He went on there and just did an amazing job.
He did so good.
So after I saw the debate, I called him on the phone. And I said to him, I said, brother, you did amazing. How are you feeling?
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know, Keith. You know, I think I could have done better. I'm not sure. You know, it was good, but, you know, he was kind of being a little hard on himself. And he's told this story before, so I feel like I can share it. But And I just told him what I told him was I said, first of all, you did amazing. I am 100% affirmed that you were the right guy for that. And at the end of the day, you have to realize it doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter how you feel about your performance. Look at what people are saying. They're being impacted. They're changing that. They're changing their point of view based on what you had said. It's having an impact. And he was just so humble about it. You know, he was just like, oh, thank you for believing in me. And I was like, man, it was a God thing, you know?
Yeah.
And you know what the truth is, Matt? I got more out of that just for me. That felt better to me than if I would have done the debate and blown up as some big fancy apologist and, you know, whatever. Because, you know, that's what's happening to him right now. And praise God, that's what God wanted.
Yeah. No,
but to me, I just go, praise the Lord. You know, I didn't need to be in that spot because that wasn't my lane.
Yeah. So there you go. There's another.
So
one.
I think he's doing.
Alex,
I think he's doing great. Yeah, I like.
His,
you know,
his colleague who works with him has a channel, and I've forgotten his name. Hoping to have him on the channel soon. But anyway, I thought maybe you'd know him. Yeah, there's definitely more than two people.
Oh, for sure. You know,
Lila Rose is doing great stuff.
Yeah, I just went out to California. I was just with her a couple weeks ago.
Yep. And it's good to have different kinds of people. Like it's good to have women doing stuff, and Australian knuckleheads doing stuff, and men who acted in Better Call Saul and have a voice deeper than any man should have doing stuff.
I want to say one thing about what happened at Lila's place, okay? Because I had two things happen within 2 days that were just total God moments. The second one was Lila's, okay? I'd never talked to her or met her before. And I think it was because Alex told that story I just told you on her show. So they reached out to me, like literally the day that came out. They said, we want you to come out for a show. So they sent me the topic for the conversation. And it was, you know, how do we engage with the secular culture through online stuff? I'm like, okay, I'm always cool to talk about that. But what I mostly talk about is just my own journey to Catholicism. You know, that's kind of what people want to talk to me about mostly. But I love talking about other stuff too. So I'm like, all right, we can do that. But I'd never talked to her about it. And we sat down, we had this outline and all these things, and we just started chatting. And the whole episode turned into this thing about Catholic conversion and following Christ. Honestly, we didn't even dig really into what we were supposed to. And when we wrapped up, I just said to her, I said, Lila, we didn't even really go where we were supposed to go. And she just said to me, she said, Keith, the Holy Spirit was in charge of this, and we are not going to, because I told her, I said, if you want to just start over and redo the whole 2-hour interview, we can do that. Because I felt bad. I felt like I kind of hijacked it a little bit almost. And she was like, this is what God wanted. We need to shout our Catholicism from the rooftops, you know? So that was just amazing. But the day before, I went out to Lila's. Do you know who Steve Deace is? He's the one who wrote the book Nefarious that they made the movie.
Okay.
So he's got a podcast on the Blaze TV network. And it's a very popular right-wing political podcast. Sorry. And I listen to that show quite a bit. They film it in Iowa. He's from Iowa. And there's 3 guys on that show. There's Steve, there's Aaron, and there's Todd. Steve and Aaron are both evangelicals, and Todd is a Catholic. Mm-hmm. And they have these amazing conversations about politics and government and Catholicism and Protestantism. But they don't really get into debates too much. But it's very clear that Steve is very evangelical and not Catholic on purpose. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe last summer I was mowing my yard listening to the show, and they were talking about some things related to the faith. And I remember like listening to this going, oh, I want him to hear this. I want him to hear. I was totally armchair quarterbacking this conversation. And, you know, Todd was saying these things that were great, but I was like going, oh, get him here, say this. Because Todd doesn't live in the Catholic apologetics world. He lives in the you know, right-wing conservative movement world, and he's a Catholic. Very smart guy. But he's not always thinking about all of these arguments to defeat evangelical Protestantism or whatever. And it's like the Lord just hit me like a ton of bricks in that moment. And the Lord just spoke to me and said, Keith, if I wanted you there, you would be there. But you're here mowing your yard. So just, you know, have some humility there and just keep that in mind. And I just remember praying about that, going, okay, Lord, forgive me. I can't be the guy. And this again kind of goes to what we talk about. We watch a video of somebody saying something or a debate that someone, and we go, oh, well, he messed that up. He should have done that. He should have said this. Here's where he screwed that up. And I always tend to think, if God wanted you there, Mr. Perfect Guy sitting in your mom's basement on your computer chronically all day long, then you'd be there. But you're not. That guy's there. Is he perfect? No. Are any of us perfect? No. But we have to support each other. Well, it just so happens that the next, 9 months later, I was giving a talk in Des Moines where they film, and I just texted Todd and said, hey, I'm giving a talk at this men's event. Love to see it. Didn't think in a million years he would show up. He came to the event, and we hung out, and he loved it. Yeah. And the next thing I know, I'm being invited on the Steve Deace show to do a 1 hour just sit down with Steve to talk about Catholicism and Protestantism, where I got to say those things I wanted to say. I don't know when it's going to air, but it's evergreen, so they'll air it like when they're on vacation or something like that. Yeah. But I just was marveling at like how this worked out, because God was almost saying to me, "It's not your time. Just sit down and follow me. Don't try to elbow your way into things, you know." And then, in some irony, he put me there for that conversation. And I know, it's interesting. I think about it now and I go, whenever that comes out, I'm sure I will get lambasted as messing it up and not saying the right thing and God forgive me if I've ever said anything that is against the church or that isn't a good representation of Catholicism. Yeah. Lord, forgive me for that. I need, I need help. But I know that I'm going to get run through the coals by the online Catholic magisterium of people who are just nothing but critical. But I have to get to a place where I just go, it is what it is. Yeah,
that happened to me when Cameron Bertuzzi and I sat down for the first time, and he just kind of drilled me with a bunch of questions. So like, I'm not Trent Horn, I'm not the Truthfully app, I'm not Jimmy Akin, but I can chat with him. And it was the same similar thing. I got some blowback from that, and rightly so, because some of my answers weren't as good as they could have been. But none of our answers are usually as good as they could have been. I mean, none of us are Thomas Aquinas, and so I agree with you. It's like, okay, if I just said something heretical, thank you so much for correcting me, and I'll not do that again. But if it's just, you could have said that better. It's like, I agree. Yeah. Given that I'm a human.
But wouldn't it be great if the default in our space was, oh man, let's talk about how awesome that was.
Well, I'll be, Trent Horn does a good job at this, I find, because he'll often criticize say, Matt Walsh gets into an exchange with Joe Rogan on gay marriage, for example, or Michael Knowles and Charlie Kirk go at it on the papacy. And Trent will do a review video. And the very first thing I've noticed he says every single time is, this is not a criticism of that person. I know what it's like being in the hot seat. I know what it's like to say, man, I wish I should have said that, but I didn't. We all, but here's some help. So I think he does that quite charitably. Yeah,
I think charitably and having humility is so important. But I feel like we live in a time where, and we talked a little bit about masculinity earlier when we were talking about Mike. We have this mindset that masculinity is about domination.
Yeah.
And I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to annihilate your arguments and humiliate you.
Yeah.
And that's what we think masculinity is
what
now.
is being presented.
It is. And we got to be so careful with that, because think about the devil and what he does. He takes a little lie and inserts it into some truth, and then he destroys us, right? Yeah. Through our pride. And if he can come alongside us and say, hey, you need to annihilate that person, that's it. And then we get rewarded for doing that on the internet with, oh yeah, you look what you did a great. That's what gets praised, is when we effectively destroy another person through our snarky arguments. That's what gets the praise. Let him cook or whatever. People say. And I think we need to find a way to rise above that.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. Good. Here's a question for you, speaking of the internet. And I know this sounds like a snarky question, and I don't mean it to be, but a lot of people have been talking about it lately. There certainly seems to be masses of converts from Protestantism into Catholicism and Orthodoxy. Has the internet killed Protestantism, or is it slowly killing it now?
Wow, that's a great question. I don't know that the internet is killing Protestantism, but I can tell you this. The internet is making it way easier for people to learn the truth about Catholicism, which again puts a spotlight on us. And here's the key. I think that if we in the Catholic space think our job is to use the internet to destroy Protestantism, we're never going to succeed. What that is, to me, that's the result of what will happen if we do our job, which is to show the beauty of Catholicism. So if we come out and we say, here's why being Catholic is amazing. Mm-hmm. Here's the beauty of it. Here's how it will help you become the most amazing saint. Here's how it will make you a better Christian. Here's how it will bring fulfillment to your life and joy and suffering. If we hold up the beauty of Catholicism, then the fruit of that will be people will want to be Catholic. And that's the ultimate destruction, I guess, of Protestantism. It's not like, all right, we have to come out right now and make it our mission to just tear down Protestantism. Because, think about what Jesus says. If a demon is cast out of a house and it's left clean and tidy, he goes out and then brings back 7 of his friends. It has to be filled with something.
Yes.
And what we need to do is basically say, and I'm not trying to say that Protestantism is demonic just because it's Protestant. What I am saying, though, is this. We can't just make our life about tearing something down. We've got to make our life about showing the beauty of the other thing, which then people will say, well, why am I eating this when I can have this?
Yep.
Why am I eating Taco Bell when I can have, a 5-star chef cook this amazing gourmet meal for me, And I don't mean to offend people with that analogy, but I think what the internet is doing is it's highlighting those things that are true about Catholicism if we do it the right way. Because to me, most of apologetics is simply educating people on what the truth of Catholicism is. It's correcting misinterpretations. It's helping people to see what it actually is. And I know that as a convert myself, if I would have started with, let's go through all the arguments of why I'm wrong, now I'm more focused on my Protestantism because I'm trying to dig into it to defend it. But if I'm being presented with why this thing is beautiful, good, and true, now my eyes are over here on that going, well, wait a minute, I need to know more about this. Great case in point, a good friend of mine, very anti-Catholic at one point in time, and he got together with me. He told me before when I first became Catholic, he says, we need to talk about this. And it was not going to be good. I could tell he was very upset with me. Very theologically minded person. And, you know, I kind of knew that was coming one of these days where we were going to have that talk. He sends me a text, says, we need to have the talk. We get together, and he just says, I need to understand you better. I need to understand what you believe better. You know, I don't think that I really truly know why you did what you did. So help me to understand. And I just thought, you know, you need to understand what the church is from the church. So
what a humble question, by the way, I thought, from your friend.
it was completely humble. It was completely humble. And he opened that door. And so what I didn't want to do is go, all right, let me give you the, you know, 9 arguments or whatever, this or whatever that. I just said, let's get you a copy of the catechism. I want you to go through this catechism and just read it. He said, okay. And then here's what he did. He said, I made a chart of he read every paragraph of the catechism. And for the paragraphs that he agreed with, as a 5-point Calvinist Reformed guy, he said every paragraph I gave either basically like a star, an X, or a check mark, right? And the star was, I agree with this. The check mark was, I don't agree with this. And, you know, the X was, I don't agree with this. And the check mark was, I need to find out more information.
Okay.
So he started going through this process, which led him.
He read the whole catechism?
He read the whole catechism. And we went to dinner at his house maybe a month after I gave him that challenge. And we're sitting around talking about the Lord. And he goes, hold on a minute. And he holds up the catechism. And he just goes, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. And then he set it down. He goes, okay, never mind. I just needed to tell you that. Wow. And I just thought, this is it. He's going to be Catholic.
Yeah.
You know? And so over the course of many months, he began with that chart. And then what he would do is he would research those areas where he wanted more information.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because we met a few months later, maybe it was a year later, and he sat down with me and he says, I need to show you my chart, you know, and he pulls the chart out and he throws it down and he's got like, you know, it's a notebook and he's got it all sorted by the date. And he's like, here's all the stuff. And then he goes, but then I read this book and I had to talk with this priest. So then, you know, we moved these over to that category and we went through this thing and then this date and this thing. And then we went through this for like 2 or 3 minutes. And then finally he pulls it off the table and he says, and now here's where I am today. And he threw a blank piece of paper down. He says, these are my objections. Oh. And, you know, he's becoming Catholic.
Wow.
And, you know, here's the thing about that. And I'm probably going to tear up because he's a good friend of mine. And I've seen what he's had to go through for this. And here's the thing. He is so excited. Not because he found an argument, but because he found something that's beautiful. And it's not beautiful like, ooh, look, a pretty painting. It's the explanation of our faith, Matt. It's the gospel. It's the deposit of faith that Jesus wanted him and everybody else to have. And there are a number of ways that we can get there. But sometimes what we have to do as whatever we want to call ourselves, apologists, evangelists, or whatever, influencers, which I hate that term, our job needs to be to show that beauty of what the Catholic faith is to people. And that is really how you're going to destroy Protestantism or whatever else. But if we just start off with, let me just tell you why you're wrong. Now that person is instantly put in defensive posture. They have to build up these walls. They have to protect. They have to defend. But when you say, I'm not even going to do that, then amazing things can happen. And one other quick story on this, because it just happened. It's another one of my friends, evangelical guy who was in ministry for years, known him forever. He's on this journey himself to Catholicism, right? We've been talking about it for years, and he's finally at a place where he's open to doing it, but he's still got a lot of questions. He's got a lot of things. So he decides to go on a retreat, a silent retreat. I can't remember if it was a Franciscan thing. I think it was a Franciscan retreat center. He goes to it, and they begin the silent retreat with a meeting with the spiritual director, okay? Mm-hmm. And he goes in there.
Why did he even go to a Catholic retreat center?
I'll tell you why. Because he wanted to learn, okay? He wanted to learn, and he wanted to get some of his questions answered. So he goes to this place with a notebook of like, you know, here are my questions. I want the answers. He sits down with this monk, and the monk says, well, tell me why you're here. And he says, well, I'm learning about Catholicism. I've got some questions for you, and I was hoping that you could help me work through them. And the monk basically goes, we don't do that here. I'm going to teach you how to pray. That's why you're here. Put your notebook away. Put your questions away. Put your agenda away. And I'm going to teach you how to encounter God and Jesus Christ here at this place. And it just completely put him in a state where he could hear from God, not about his arguments, but about his heart. And he encountered God in such a powerful way at that retreat. And now he's becoming Catholic.
Come on.
And him and I never had the whole argument back and forth thing that I was preparing for. You know, when I meet people who they want to talk about Catholicism, sometimes, especially when I was first starting out, I would want to have all these arguments ready to go, all of these things, you know. Even when I went on Steve's show, I had a notebook, I had all the arguments. I even emailed Trent Horn one time before the thing, and I was like, how do you prepare for it? What do you have? You know?
Yeah.
But I'm like, I got to be ready. And what I've learned is, no, you don't need to do that. What you need to do is show the beauty of the faith and help these people understand what Catholicism is. Most of what Steve and I talked about were dealing with misconceptions that he had about the faith and showing the beauty of it. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but to me, I think that's a better approach than setting out on this digital crusade to destroy something that is so dear to a person, because their faith, that's their faith. And if you come at them too hard with, I'm going to destroy your faith, you Protestant heretic, well, how do you know that you're not going to push them over the edge to atheism? So instead of saying, let me tell you why you're a crappy Christian because you're a Protestant, show them how being a Catholic is going to make you a saint and what that leads you to. And it's the fullness of what you're already doing. It's not the opposite of what you're doing. It's the fullness of it. That's what I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think people have different temperaments and receive things differently. Mike Pensier, who for some reason has come up multiple times in this episode, you know, he was a Protestant and really appreciated people coming after him hard and showing him the arguments and showing him why he was wrong and telling him and so I think different people receive things differently, which is, I think, back to an earlier point you made, why it's good that we're not all Jimmy Akin or Thomas Aquinas, because people receive things differently from different people. And to your point earlier about the radio show, you're like, come on, you should have said that. Maybe you shouldn't have. Like, maybe that relationship was what he needed right then, to see in his friend someone who loved Jesus Christ and the church, even if he couldn't explain it all as well as perhaps you could have when you went on his show.
That's the point of all of this, I think, is when we have the mindset that we're all part of this team, then when we are talking to people, we need to listen to them and find out where they're itching so we can scratch the right itch. Yeah. So, for example, if I'm talking to an evangelical Protestant who is all about, I just want to be in God's presence all day long. I just want to be in God's presence all day long. You know, it's all about the presence of God, the presence of God. I'm not going to argue with them about creation versus evolution and, you know, all this kind of stuff, or on the liturgy wars. I'm going to talk to them about the Eucharist. You know, if I'm talking to somebody who is wrestling with, I don't know, they're wrestling with why do bad things happen to good people, you know, and they're wrestling with the issue of suffering, I'm going to take them to some of the writings of the saints that have been martyrs and suffered. You know, we have to know who our audience is and then be humble enough, hopefully, and I fail at this a lot, to say, maybe I'm not the best person. Maybe I should have, you know, what book should I read, Keith? You know, well, here I have a couple of books, but maybe you should read this other one instead. You know, if you're really all about sola scriptura, then you should read some of Gary Machuda's stuff, you know, about the canon. But when we have this understanding of team, then we can easily flow between those, and we're aware of, oh man, this person would be great for them. This person would be great for them. You know, my kids who are, you know, Zoomers, like I'm not going to tell them to subscribe to the YouTube channels of these, you know, of these older people. I'm going to say, oh, well, hey, you know, these younger people are they're speaking your language a little bit better. Do that. I'm not just going to go, oh, well, these Zoomers, we can't talk about, they're terrible. You know, no, they have something they're really good at. How do we line that up with the people that we're speaking to?
I want to tell you about some amazing coffee we were sent recently. It was from 7 Weeks Coffee, which is America's pro-life coffee company. They are on a mission to fund the pro-life movement, one cup of coffee at a time. The reason they're called 7 Weeks Coffee is because it's at 7 weeks that a baby is the size of a coffee bean. And it's the same time a heartbeat is clearly detected on an ultrasound. They donate 10% of every sale to support pregnancy care centers across the country, and they've raised over $900,000 for these centers and have saved thousands of lives. Now, let me tell you about the coffee, because, it's one thing to have a great mission, but is the coffee any good? And I can assure you that it is excellent. I had a cup this morning. My wife and I both love it. It's mold-free, pesticide-free, shade-grown, low acid, it's organically farmed. It truly checks all the boxes. So go to 7weekscoffee.com and save 15% forever when you subscribe. Plus, exclusively for my listeners, use the promo code MATT for an extra 10% off your first order. That's a 25% total savings on your first order plus your free gift. Remember, your order will directly help support a network of over 1,000 pro-life organizations across the U.S. 7weekscoffee.com.
When we recognize each other as being all part of this body of Christ and this family and with similar missions, then we can do that. But sometimes if we've made our whole persona about tearing everybody down, it's pretty hard to tear somebody down and then refer their content to somebody else.
Mm-hmm, yeah. When you were coming into the faith, 2017, do you think that the misconceptions are the same today for Protestants as they were back then, or are they different?
This has blown me away. But by and large, yes. And why I say this blows me away is because one of the problems I have is I keep feeling like I can't keep making the same kind of content. I can't keep talking about why we don't worship Mary, or why sola scriptura doesn't work, or the Catholic Church doesn't think the Pope is perfect, or what, like these basic arguments about Catholicism. Because I go, well, I've already done that, and so has everybody else.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me is I run into people all the time on YouTube and other places that are still making the same objections. So they're still, whatever we've done hasn't reached that person. So I feel like sometimes I go, well, I've already done that. But I think the Lord hits me with that and saying, well, maybe you need to do it again, just in a little different way.
Yep.
But the best way to figure that out is to listen to that person, listen to their objection, find out, what's the issue here? Have you heard these other arguments that we've been making for 30 years and they haven't convinced you? If so, why not? Is there a part of your argument that we haven't addressed? Or are you just so new to this that you don't even know who these guys are? So, but either way, the answer is still the same. We still have to speak to them. So I think a lot of those arguments are still there because we have new people coming in all the time. But we can get stuck into think, 30 years ago, Rome Sweet Home came out, so nobody else needs to write a book about becoming Catholic. But there are new people that are being exposed to this stuff every single day, and a lot of them haven't done that big deep dive yet into the world of Catholic apologetics. So I think some of those arguments are still out there.
I think one of the reasons I'll use the language that Protestantism might be dying, and again, I hope it dies because I think it's a Christian heresy, but I don't want people to be left without faith. I want them to come to the fullness.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of Protestants share with me. When they became a Catholic, they just became more of a Christian. It was less giving up things and more adopting this whole beautiful universe. But I think one of the reasons might be because even Protestant, again, to use that word we don't like, influences are very much at odds with each other. Are they Calvinist? Are they Arminian? Or what have you? But do you think with the online fighting that we sometimes overplay the divergence within Protestantism and the unity within Catholicism? Or do you think, no, even with our little kind of sneering disagreements with each other, the unity in Catholicism is still the major selling point for Protestants?
That's a great question. I think it depends on the Protestant you're talking to, because some Protestants make a really big deal out of the divisions within Protestantism. They fight with each other, and they're really hung up on those nuanced positions within Protestantism about, let's say, baptism or the Holy Spirit or the end times or whatever, sacraments, how to do church. There's a lot of infighting about that. Mm-hmm. I still think it's wise for Catholics to talk about the divisions in Protestantism, but not at that level, because we have it at that level too.
Gotcha.
Okay, I mean,
Gotcha.
some of the things I mentioned.
Yeah.
So I think when we talk about the divisions within Protestantism, we have to keep it to a higher level of division. Okay, not on the lower levels of things. Okay, the more shallow things.
Yeah, like we prefer this kind of music.
Exactly, because they're going to look at us and say, "Well, you guys have the same thing. You got all these guys fighting about Latin Mass, Novus Ordo, whatever." We need to downplay those divisions and highlight the upper level, the things that really truly matter to the faith that Protestants are divided on. Okay, those are big deals. Baptism is a big deal. Whether or not you can lose your salvation is a big deal. Those are things that really truly matter. And if Protestants want to try to say, "Well, we're united on the most of the important things," here's an even bigger deal. Who gets to say what those things are? Unity in the essentials, charity in the non-essentials. Well, in a Protestant mindset, you can't really say that because, first of all, we don't even know what the essentials and the non-essentials are, and we don't have an authority that can tell us.
And the Bible doesn't lay it out.
No. So we can say, well, that's, who gets to make that call? In Catholicism, we don't have that issue. We have other issues. We don't have that issue. We have the church's teaching that is there. If you want to know what the church teaches on a given subject, you can find the answer, and every Catholic has to agree with that when it comes down to the dogmas of the Christian faith. We don't have these divergent issues on things like whether or not you can lose your salvation or justification by faith or a faith alone. We don't have that. So we need to highlight those areas of unity because those are the ones that really matter. The problem is when we don't do that, Protestants think all division is created equal. And they look at us and they go, well, you guys are just as divided. You've got Franciscans and you've got Dominicans and you've got Jesuits. So there you go. And I'm constantly telling people, those are not different denominations within Catholicism. Those are different areas of focus and different areas of mission, but they're all under the same authority. They all have the same ultimate authority and doctrine and teaching. We're unified in the faith. Those are just different ways of living it out. You guys don't have that unity. You couldn't even if you tried, because there is no authority in that mindset. I think it's good to highlight those things, but we have to make sure we're highlighting the right areas of division and we are emphasizing the right areas of unity in Catholicism, so that way those two things aren't seen as apples to apples.
Mm-hmm. I thought of an analogy recently. You may have thought of it as well. If you've got a couple of dumbbells in your garage and you've got a big equipped gym up the road, you can kind of work out well with a couple of dumbbells, but it takes a lot more work. Likewise, or analogously, you could have somebody at the gym up the road just scrolling Instagram and sitting on the bench. And I think that's not it's not perfect, but it's an analogy for Catholicism and Protestantism. Like, we've all met Protestants who love Jesus Christ, and they have the scriptures, and they can teach us things about it, and we should be humble enough to learn from them. I don't mean anything novel, not something the church hasn't taught or that the saints haven't taught, but we all know individual Protestants who just are beautiful, and they might put us to shame in our own prayer life and Bible reading and things like this. I guess just throwing that out there for all the Protestants who are watching us. I mean, in saying that, we want people to become Catholic, it's not to say that we don't think that you love Jesus Christ or can't be more advanced than me in prayer or something like that.
I think it's a great analogy. I would just add one piece to it.
Yep.
Okay, you've got the guy with the dumbbells scrolling on his phone, trying to figure it out on his own.
Yeah.
Down the road, you've got the beautiful gym with the personal trainer.
Yeah, come on.
Who can say to you, here's what you need to do. Otherwise you can go on YouTube and look for fitness videos and different plans, but ultimately, you can just try to figure it out on your own. And you know what? You're going to have some results, because some of the things that you're going to do on your own are the same things that the trainer who knows what he's talking about would tell you to do. But you're not going to know everything that you're supposed to do. And he does. Okay. So your personal trainer who knows how to train you and what to have you do. Because I don't know. I mean, I've gone through that journey in my own life. And I tell you this, when I'm trying to get in shape, it's much easier when I have someone who's going to say, here's the weight, here's how many times you have to do it.
Yeah.
Not, okay, well, what should I do today?
Totally.
I got these things I could do. That's whatever I do is probably going to be good to some degree. But he's going to tell me exactly what to do to get the desired result. I think that's Catholicism. So I love your analogy. I would just add the teaching element of the personal trainer who knows what you really should be doing to get the result.
How did that happen for you when you crossed over the Tiber into Catholicism?
Oh, it was incredibly freeing because I felt the pressure constantly and the insecurity at the same time of thinking, how do I know what's true with this? How do I navigate through this conflict that I was having in my own denomination that was going very liberal when I was, at the time, relatively conservative, okay? I'm more conservative now as a Catholic, but theologically, I mean, okay? How do I figure out how to navigate through this when I've got all these supposed smart people who they have the same Bible I have, and they've got more degrees than I do, and they're telling me that, it's okay for these particular things to happen that we're arguing about, and that I'm clearly going, this isn't biblical, this isn't right. And then apart from even the conflict, just wanting to know God, wanting to know what's true, and seeing so many theologians that I loved and respected and preachers that I loved and respected, but that had completely different takes on things. I loved listening to Tim Keller. I loved listening to him. But I also listened to other guys who were not Reformed Calvinists, and they had beautiful takes on things too. And, I was a Calvary Chapel guy when I was young, and I loved that aspect of it too. But those things don't always line up either. And trying to figure out, well, which one's right? How are we supposed to do this? That, to me, was exhausting. And when I became Catholic, it was just like I could say, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to figure out how many sets or how many reps or how much weight I should do or should I go 3 days or 5 days or should I do that? All I have to do is I'm going to have to work hard, no doubt. It's not easy. I'm going to have to work hard, but I'm working hard at what I'm supposed to be doing, right? When I go to the gym with the personal trainer, I love this analogy, Matt. I'm going to steal it. And when I go to the gym with the personal trainer, I'm going to work harder than I was working over here, but it's on the right thing.
Yeah.
So to me, I wasn't afraid of hard work in my faith. I wanted to do that. I wanted to dig. I wanted to know the truth and follow it and live it. It's just when I became Catholic, I felt like I finally had the fullness of what that meant, which was so freeing and the cause of such incredible joy. Nothing else mattered. Losing my income didn't matter. Losing, my career path and my identity as a pastor didn't matter. Losing what I knew I was going to do for the next, 25 years of my life didn't matter. All the other things. They were important, but they were nothing compared to the beauty of what I was stepping into. So to me, I just go, that's what we need to do.
What revealed the beauty of the Catholic Church to you? Was it a local parish?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, it was seeing the faith lived out in a few people in my life that I knew very well who were hardcore Catholics. Devin Schott is one of them. I know he was on your show recently. Seeing his faith, because
Yeah, I remember you were telling me the story about the two of you getting into an argument.
Oh, man, we got into tons of arguments.
He's terrific. But
when I saw how he lived out his faith through cancer and through what happened with his daughter, Anna Marie, and like, he's the real deal, man. He wasn't just going, well, I'm a Catholic, so I have to suffer and like it. He found purpose and meaning. And I remember watching him just going, I couldn't do that. I still do that. So seeing the faith lived out in the lives of a few people that I knew close, and there were others too. My friend Greg is another one. So that was, but then when I started going to Mass and really understanding, and then of course, we talked about learning the Catholic faith online, different things, seeing the beauty of it, reading the Church Fathers, reading some of these things that these people were going through, and understanding the sacraments in a better way. I think that was so beautiful to me when I started to really understand the Eucharist. When I started to understand confession, I saw that as beauty. I saw that as freedom. And I wanted it to be true. Even the things affiliated with the Blessed Virgin Mary, I saw the devotion that people had to her, but it wasn't something that made me think, oh, she's a distraction or she is an obstacle. I saw how their devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary made them more in love with Jesus. And they had this faith that seemed otherworldly to me. And it wasn't like less than what I had. It was more than what I had. And I wanted that. I wanted that.
Yeah. Criticism is easy to offer. Defining ourselves by what we're not is really easy to do. But yeah. Praising what is good is more difficult for whatever reason. And knowing who we are and not just what we're against is very important. Yeah. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
I think it's true. I mean, and I'd ask you the same thing. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time right now. And, you know, you've had this journey with not just being a Catholic, but your journey with your family, your journey with this podcast, and all of that. And I don't mean to turn tables on you, Matt, but I'd love to know right now for you what's beautiful about your faith.
Thank you. I'll get to that. I think why we like criticizing things is because we can't find Eden here. And we subconsciously think that we should be able to. That if we can just pull the right levers and get people to act the way they should, like not talk at church and, you know, not have drums at mass and whatever else, if we just get all that, and don't get me wrong, that's definitely an improvement. But we think that eventually, there we go, now we've got it. But I think that just is impossible. And so we're always finding ourselves frustrated because we don't realize that we're kind of meant to live in that tension. The amidst our own poverty and the poverty of those that we interact with. I think that's part of the reason that going to a parish, which we're commanded to do, right, and we ought to do, but why it's so good for us is that we have to kind of, we have to encounter the poverty of other people. And it might not even be an objective poverty on their part. It might just be my own irritability or lack of patience that makes it seem such.
Isn't that the life of Christ? I mean, isn't that what he did? He came down and he entered into that.
Yeah.
And
he was perfect. He was from Eden, as it were, from heaven, right? And so if anyone had a right to be like, oh my gosh, you guys are hopeless, it would have been him, and yet he didn't.
And not only did he not do that,
he drank and eat with sinners.
He was with them, and whenever somebody else around him would do that, he instantly shut that down.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
He instantly shut that down. So that's not what this is about. That's not what this is about.
One thing I'm trying to get better at is not just not criticizing people, and by that I include my children and my wife, and but also not judging people. It's funny that I say that like it's a revolutionary idea and not something that Christ explicitly commanded me not to do. But it is so easy. I mean, I was at the beach with my son the other day, and you see people wearing a little too little, and it's almost like there's this rut in my brain that goes to just this, like the society we're in, and people dressing like that because they're exposed to this, and this is the kind of stuff we put on TV, and there are things that we can correct and should correct. Okay, I understand that. But sometimes it's not even sexual or immoral, right? It could be something like I see a girl in line and she's got a bazillion tattoos and blue hair. And I just think, why do I feel like I need to even judge her at all? Like, it's not like I'll be doing something wrong if I don't do that. I could just greet her as a human being and
absolutely
recognize that I've got no idea what she's been through or why she did what she did, and just be kind. That's an option, right? No. I gotta just sort the world into who's in and who's out and who's good and who's bad, so we can establish some sort of order amidst this chaos. But all right, what's beautiful in the faith right now? I think what's beautiful in the faith right now is just my beautiful family. Your
That's
kids
awesome.
are a little older than mine, right?
Yeah, mine are 27,
Not me, mine.
27, 25, and 24.
So mine go from 17 down to 10.
Yeah.
I have never had a period in my life where I have been so just joyful at my family life.
Beautiful.
You go through seasons. Sometimes it's exhausting. My kids are just so beautiful. They're so good and funny and interesting, and I just love them. And honestly, one of the biggest joys in my life right now is just praying the rosary with the kids at night. I keep saying this on the show, and I don't mean to keep going on about it, but my wife will light the candles, and my son will bury himself under a blanket, and who knows what he's doing under there, and I don't care anyway. I'm just glad he's with us, and we just gently pray the rosary, and it's simple, and it's It's not terribly impressive, but it's just lovely. And it's just a beautiful way to end the night as a family together. I've just been loving that. I've been loving waking up in the mornings, making myself a coffee and praying the morning hours of the breviary. Just very non-dramatically. I think that's been a big thing I've had to fight with throughout my Christian life, is this fight against perfectionism. Even this morning that happened, right? I'm sitting down, I'm drinking me coffee, and I'm reading through the morning prayer. And I think, you really should be standing and praying. Or you could be kneeling and praying.
You're judging yourself in that moment.
yeah. That would be better. And I had to kind of say to myself, that part of myself, you're right, but I'm going to do this. Because I know that if I was to get uber passionate and hard ass about it, I'd do it for 2 or 3 more days, and then I'd subconsciously find a reason not to do it. So I'm almost going to be gentle with that part of myself that just woke up, it's kind of tired and caffeine deprived, and we're going to do this the best that we can. That gentleness, I think I was afraid that if I showed some gentleness towards myself or my family, we'd be swamped and destroyed. But what I'm not talking about is being laxy-daisy. That's the kind of mistake that I always had. I thought if I'm too gentle, then I'll give up. No, actually the opposite's true. When I was harsh on myself, I don't know, I couldn't continue. I would just get deflated, or I'd lose perseverance. But if I can just be like, you know what? This kid is getting up for their 5th glass of water during the rosary today, and that's okay. What a beautiful opportunity for me to not criticize them, as opposed to being the dad, sit down. That's easy to do.
Yeah.
And maybe there's times that you should be doing that. You understand?
Yeah.
As I'm getting older, that gentleness with myself and my others, I'm seeing my prayer life just grow and grow, and I am seeing virtue flourish. I'm not seeing the opposite that I was afraid I would see. That said, Keith, I don't think I would have been able to receive that advice as a newly married man. I wouldn't have understood it. Or I would have thought I understood it, which is how I would have misunderstood it.
No, that makes perfect sense. And there's a lot of things that line up with the other analogy about the gym that we were talking about earlier. Maybe we ought to start a Catholic fitness podcast.
Let's do it.
But if you set these crazy parameters around that, let's say you're going to start, you want to get in shape.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go 5 days a week for 2 hours in the morning and an hour at night. I'm going to run, 3 miles every day. I'm going to do all this stuff and blah, 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 blah. I'm going to eat macros and all that stuff like that, because you're fired up. And you get into day 3 and you're like, I can't do this. And then what do we do at that point in time?
Well, what we don't do is make a conscious decision not to do it. We don't go, I'm not doing this anymore. Maybe you do, but I think what's more likely to happen is you find an excuse not to do it, and you fill your time with something else, and you just sort of push it out of your mind until I haven't worked out in years, you might say to yourself.
He slides away, but it doesn't. What it doesn't usually do is devolve into a more healthy balance.
Yeah.
What it does is it goes from all to nothing.
Exactly.
And then it's harder to go back there because we associate that very exercise with this rigidity and this unmeetable standard that we can't live up to. And so what we do is we punish ourselves because we can't be perfect instead of trying just to be good.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a reality to our spiritual life with that sometimes. We think, I can't be perfect, so I'm just, I'm worthless. But sometimes what God's just saying is I just want you to be good. I'm not talking about allowing compromise, sin, and things like that. What I'm talking about is letting God define for us what he wants us to do, rather than comparing ourselves to somebody else or letting someone else tell us what we need to be doing so we can be as good as they are. We have to just show up. And I think about with Jesus and those little kids that showed up, and the disciples were like, he's teaching, get them out of here. And he grabs and puts them on his lap.
Yeah, that totally would have been me in my first few years of marriage.
Sure. You'd be, let the little children come to me. And I'll tell you where this is intersecting that part of it in my life right now. That's a beautiful thing. And I think it goes to that, because how kids are supposed to behave in church. When I was a pastor, okay, I was the guy that was like, get those kids out of here. I'm talking. And what I say is important. So if you got a little kid who's fussing in church, we've provided entertainment for them. So this is all about me. The light's on me. The sound's on. Everything's right here, people. I've got the Bible. This is important. Get those kids out of here. Well, obviously we know in Catholicism it doesn't work that way. And I think that's a good thing. That was a struggle for me at first. I have a granddaughter now, and my kids have started coming to Mass with us, bringing my daughter and her husband bring my granddaughter to Mass with us. And she makes the little baby noises and does the things. I mean, and I love sitting there holding her, and I'll get up and kind of just like go in the back a little bit if she gets a little crazy. But here's the thing I've never encountered. I've never had the priest call me out and chastise me from the pulpit. You know, and don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that if she's having a meltdown and screaming and freaking out that
we're just going to sit here.
We're just going to sit here. But just the little things of just babies in my past life, that would have been like a no-go zone. Mm-hmm. And what's been cool for my kids who are kind of taking a step out to do this, you know, they have felt so loved and so accepted by the parish that after Mass is done, they are literally mobbed with all these people that want to tell them how beautiful their baby is and how thankful they are that they're there. And that has been a huge witness to my daughter and her husband. It's just been amazing. But again, it goes to that whole, are we trying to be like rigid in perfection? Jesus said, let those kids come to me, even though they were probably making noise during his sermon.
Yeah. Well, I think what Christ wants of me is my confidence in him. So you almost might say that, you know, the Mass and the, you know, stereotypical evangelical service, there might be a nice analogy here. Let's see. Maybe it'll have something to do with the gym.
Yeah.
But, you know, in the spiritual life, I don't actually have to do the work, but I rely on his grace, beginning, middle, and end. So what I'm finding is, as I surrender to the good Jesus and say, listen, you know this, Jesus, all of my strength is weakness anyway. So I would like you to please come through. I trust in you, and I trust that you'll bring about in me the good things you want to bring about. That kind of lightness and that kind of gentleness and this trust in the loving Father who's actually at work in you. That's kind of like Mass in the sense that, like, we just do the same thing every single day, and there's not a lot of effort put into it. Do you know what I mean by that?
I know exactly what you mean.
I mean,
by
obviously
that.
there's effort put into it, but now think of that, and then you contrast that with a praise and worship service, which I'm not demonizing or anything like that, but you might contrast that with a lot of energy, a lot of this has to be just so, and we've got to work ourselves up. It's like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And so kind of like that peace and relief you're seeing at daily Mass and contrasting that to you when you were the pastor, maybe suggesting that people go elsewhere, however you put it, is like how I'm kind of, I hope is true. What do I know? That the Holy Spirit might be leading me in this direction from this like hardcore, badass, we're going to get this done, hard ass, I suppose is what I should say, to just a receptivity and reliance on the grace of God. And then as I do that, I'm finding, and I think you might agree, that I feel, I'm not saying I'm advanced, but I feel like I'm advancing more when I just put my trust in him gently than if I try to figure this out on my own.
That is beautiful. I love the way you put that. It reminds me of when I was learning what to do at adoration. When I was learning about that, I, of course, showed up as a new Catholic to adoration, and I'm like, okay, this has to be productive. And I need to be on my knees on the hard concrete floor the entire time, and I need to be, reading something very spiritual or doing whatever this or whatever that. And I remember coming in just not knowing what to do. But sometimes when I first started going to adoration, I was going at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, well, that's just hardcore right there. So there we go. Check that box off. All right. And I remember feeling like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And I don't know if it's working. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. And I remember, I think it was Devin Schott who said to me, adoration is just like receiving a blood transfusion. You just lay back and take it.
Nothing's
you don't
required.
have to do anything. And I just love that. I'm like, okay, now I get it. Because it's not about, and again, we do this, right? Is it about what I have to do, or is it about what God is doing? And I think sometimes we think it has to be about me because my faith is weak. And if I don't do something, nothing's going to happen. And I think sometimes we have to have that trust to say, no, you don't have to do anything. Let him work it out. Let him do the thing. Just get out of the way. And sometimes the best way that we can get out of the way is just to literally show up and just sit there.
Yeah. This happened to me at Bob Schutz hosted this retreat, and I went on it, and the Lord did beautiful healing in my own life in that retreat. It was almost analogous to my initial conversion experience. It was wild. But I remember showing up at this retreat, and I had that sense, nothing is required of you. It was almost the Holy Spirit saying this to me, nothing. Like, and I look back on it and I realized I could have actually probably tried harder to enter in, but I just felt so convicted that I had nothing was required of me at all. So they'd be given a talk, and sometimes I'd just tune out and like look at something else. And I knew what I was doing, and I knew that was okay. It was weird. But somehow it was like surgery, or it was like a blood transfusion.
Yeah.
Like, sit down, shut up. Nothing, literally nothing is needed of you. All right, Lord, well, I trust that you'll give me what you want to give me. That was the most powerful retreat I've ever been on, and I didn't even try. Tried not to try.
It takes a lot of trust to do that, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's a lack of control. It's I don't have control
you know
over
what
this.
It's like it's the to use a marital analogy, it's like the woman in the marital act is not passive. She's receptive. And there's a big difference. Like one is active and one isn't. So I suppose what I mean is, and what I guess we're trying to say about prayer is, it's not about being passive. It's about actively, I'll take what you want to give me.
Love that.
I'll grow where you want me to grow.
I love that. That's receive, like the act of receiving. And it's interesting. It reminds me of an argument that we often have with Protestants sometimes about the thief on the cross, who they want to make the argument that he didn't do anything. So they want to say faith alone, because the thief on the cross didn't do any works. He, whatever. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Look what he did. Look what he did. First of all, he acknowledged his sin, and he, in doing so, repented of it clearly, because he wouldn't have acknowledged it as sin if he wasn't sorry for it. Yeah. He called Jesus Lord, and he submitted himself to his authority, and he begged for his mercy. When you come into your kingdom, Lord, will you remember me?
Wow.
He did everything he could in that moment. So the argument that he didn't do anything, but think about this. I almost look at it like that's the whole point. We have to be crucified to truly receive the way we're supposed to. I think a lot of us would be better Christians if we were crucified, because then we couldn't control with our hands. It's like he held his hands back and said, nope, you're just going to receive what I'm going to do for you today. And you can't do anything. And I think that's the key. And people will argue, was that a work or what? That's a stupid argument, by the way, to argue whether that was a work or whether it wasn't a work. It's not the point. The point is God did a work in him and he received it, right? But that is his participation, because people want to say, well, he didn't do anything. No. And that goes to your point, Matt. Being receptive is sometimes the greatest work that we can do. Because so oftentimes our desire and our attempts to do things is the opposite of receptivity. It's saying, no. I really don't want to receive what you have for me. I got these other things that I'm doing. So look at this, look at this, look at this. And what God is saying, that's fine. But what I have to give you is going to require for you to set that aside and just let me do what I want to you. So take your hands and let me nail them to that cross. I wonder if that's what St. Paul said, or what he meant when he said, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. He's downplaying all of that. That's receptivity right there. And I just know in my own life, I get into the most trouble when I try to help. When I try to say, all right, God, cool, I got this. Let me go do the thing you want me to do and then bring it back to you. Because I want to be like that faithful steward, right? I want to be the one who takes the talents and multiplies it. And I think that there's a truth there that we have to wrestle with. But sometimes the greatest way that you will discover that you can multiply those talents is to always remember this thing. I learned it years ago. My old buddy, pastor, friend of mine, Craig, used to say this all the time. He would say, God is not looking for people to do things for him. He's looking for people he can do things through. And I've never felt that more than I have as a Catholic. And it's that receptivity piece of it.
I'm thinking of John 15, I am the vine, you are the branches. So
abide in me.
Abiding, eh?
Yeah. Whoever eats my flesh, I will abide in him, and he will bear fruit. You can't, apart from me, what does he say? You can do awesome stuff. Go at it. No.
Some things.
Apart from me, you can do nothing. And it amazes me how in our zeal, maybe even our zeal for the faith, that's a good thing, we still try to do things apart from him. You know, and I think that's what I really need in my own life, Matt, is like, Lord, help me to see the things that I'm trying to do apart from you, even the good things, so that I can repent of them and allow you to do the things that you want to do through me, rather than me do these things and say, hey, look at what I did over here. Because really, what's the difference? It's not about that anyway. It's about that being joined to the Father. And apart from him, we do nothing anyway. But it's so hard to get that right when we're trying to be, good little disciples.
Yeah. We see how, I think a lot of us, including myself, don't often think about the ways that we seek to control God. It just seems like a silly sentence. And intellectually, we know that's not possible anyway, so why would I even contemplate it? But we all see the ways that we try to control other people. Not through maybe obvious ways, but maybe through subtle ways, or when they do something that displeases us, that we're quick to let them know and things like that. And we must be doing that with God as well.
Are you kidding me? Come on. We manipulate God all the time, or at least we try to.
Yeah.
And that is something, I will tell you this. I've seen that more as a Catholic than I saw as a Protestant.
How so?
Well, because
if you're anything like me, you sometimes reach the end of summer feeling a little spiritually drained and in need of rest. That's why I'm excited to tell you about St. Michael's Lent with Exodus 90. Rooted in an ancient tradition practiced by St. Francis of Assisi, this 40-day journey was born out of his deep devotion to St. Michael the Archangel. In fact, it was during this practice that St. Francis received the stigmata, a profound moment of grace and transformation. Join Exodus 90 in bringing back this ancient tradition, a chance to break away from distraction, reconnect with prayer, and fortify your faith. This year, they're diving into the letters of St. Paul to help us see beyond the material world and enter into the reality of the spiritual battle we're living in. So, men, if you've been feeling the call to go deeper, to live with greater freedom, discipline, and purpose, join Father Innocent and Father Angelus of the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal as they lead us through St. Michael's Lent starting August 15th. Be a part of reviving this ancient tradition in the Church and rally with brothers from around the world to follow the example of St. Francis and St. Michael. Go to exodus90.com/Matt to find out more information. Join us on August 15th for St. Michael's Lent and get ready to fight the good fight. That's exodus90.com/Matt.
In Catholicism, go back to the gym analogy for a second. If I'm trying to impress the personal trainer and I'm in this big fancy gym with all this equipment and all these weights, I can do a lot more cool stuff. Hey, check out how I can, bounce on my head and do a bench press at the same time. I can, it's all whatever. And in Catholicism, we have so many more devotions. We have so many more things. We know that there's so many more things at stake. We have all this stuff. If you're looking to do something, you can find it in Catholicism, right? So,
interesting.
And also, there are these traditions within our faith that attach promises, right? You think about the promises to those who pray the Rosary daily, or the brown scapular, or whatever these things, and great. But sometimes that can easily take us to a place in our mind where we go, okay,
I've done it all.
All I got to do is X, Y, Z, boom. Now God has to do what I want, or Our Lady has to do what I want. I think it's easier to fall into that mindset as a Catholic, which I think is one of the reasons why one of the misconceptions that people have about Catholics is that they're superstitious, because they're always, hey, if I bury this statue of St. Joseph in my yard, my house will sell. That's. Let's be real, Matt. There's a piece of us that's trying to control God in that, or a situation in that. If I do this, if I do that, because what it starts with is the desired result. How do I achieve this result in my life that is completely arbitrary, right? It might be a good thing, okay? But if I do X, Y, Z, this will happen. Well, you can't enter into that type of arrangement without some sort of strings attached, expectations, manipulation. So as Catholics, I think we have to be extra careful that we are obeying the Lord and engaging in these devotional practices without becoming people who think that because we've done those things now, we're in the driver's seat and we can control what God has to do for us.
I sent something to my beautiful daughter the other day. No, I can't find it, but it was a quote from Teresa of Avila. I forget which work it was of hers. But she said that, she doesn't really even call it prayer if I'm mumbling to myself with no idea about who I'm talking to. But the point she made that is to your point is that we often talk to God like he's a servant of ours as opposed to we're his servant. We got to boss him around and expect things of him, and we even expect him to listen as we're not even listening to ourselves. Oh, that's scary.
I do that, Matt.
You think this is one of the reasons people get bored of the rosary? It's like, well, of course, anyone would get bored if all you were doing was mumbling without thinking about what you were doing.
Yeah. Lord, forgive me for that. I mean,
Me too.
we can all fall into that.
Yeah.
We can all fall into those traps of doing these things because we think that there will be a result from them that is something that we have predetermined.
I also, though, to speak almost from the other side of my mouth, think that it can be unhelpful to be like, well, I've got to be uber concentrated this entire time and then get displeased with myself when I find my mind wandering.
Yeah.
But just to go, I'm a rational animal. I'm an animal. So
well,
it's okay.
like any personal trainer will tell you, the hardest part is showing up.
Let's talk about the gym.
Let's talk about the gym a little bit.
I was at the gym this morning.
Good for you.
I was to our point earlier. I for a while I was doing back squats, and I hurt my lower back, and it scared me actually.
Yeesh.
As you kind of get older too, you're like, okay, I'm not here to impress anybody. I'm not here to beat the guy next to me or anything like that at all. I never was, so I shouldn't have had that mentality. But you work out?
Yeah. I go to the St. Michael's Barbell Club 5 days a week.
Oh, come on, good on you.
I love it, man. I love it. I mean, I'm at the age now where I'm far past the okay, I'm gonna whatever. I mean, I have some goals that I'm trying to hit, but like to me, it's a place where I love to be there because it's kind of connected to our faith. I mean, there's rosaries hanging from the wall. There's crucifixes. They
don't hide it.
Oh no, that's the purpose. I mean, we have once a month they do the rosary there with all these men come in and pray on first Saturdays. It's a very Catholic place, and most of the people that go there, like our priests, go there. So it's like most people are there are people from church and stuff. But I found like for me, what's been hard is to give myself permission to spend the time I spend there. But I go there. Not because I'm trying to achieve some, picture of masculinity or whatever. I know that's not going to happen. I just go there because it's good for me to stay disciplined.
Yeah.
And, it just makes me feel good to go and work out.
Are they CrossFit type workouts, or do you just go into the gym and do whatever you want?
I just go into the gym and do whatever I want. So, I mean, the guy that owns it, Joe, he is available for things. You can hire him to create a program for you, and I've done things with him before like that.
Yep.
But at this point, I just do my own thing, which is probably not great. I'd probably do better. Like Mike offered to, he's like, hey man, if you want, I'll try. And I look at Mike, I'm like, I'm scared to do that because I'm like,
did he ever beat that record, the deadlift record?
Oh yeah, he did 2 reps of the record. It was crazy.
Yeah, he's such a kind guy. He said the same thing to me.
He was super humble about it too, But yeah, I enjoyed it. So I do that. But I mean, you probably realize this too in your life. But it's hard to be as consistent as I want to be when I'm traveling so much because I've been traveling so much lately.
My wife and I were at the beach for a few nights last week. I try to get to the gym 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So I'll have a break in between each session. But I really enjoy it. I really like it.
I found that when I was doing 3 days a week, it was more like it would be 2 days a week. Because what would happen was, like if I said I'm going to go Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, well, on Wednesday, I'd be busy with something, and I'll go, I'll just go tomorrow. And then Thursday, I'm like, well, I'm not going to go tomorrow because it'll be Friday. So when I just sort of said to myself, I have to go 5 days a week.
Good stuff, yeah.
Because then it's just part of my day.
So you're not doing the same... You're not doing back squats 5 times a week or deadlifts 5 times a week. So how do you mix it up?
I do pushing things on Monday and Friday. I do pulling things on Tuesday. And Monday and Thursday is push. Tuesday and Friday is pull. And Wednesday is legs.
Nice.
Which I hate.
Do you...
Absolutely hate, but
You hate legs?
Oh, I hate doing legs.
What do you do for legs?
I just do squats. And then I do like leg extensions and hamstring extensions. I mean... I don't do deadlifts. I used to, but I don't know. I probably should start that, but I'm like, I'm not going to be some power lifter,
Well, but I don't know. Mike in the comments can correct the two of us, but I would think that so long as you're lifting appropriately, I think a deadlift is less dangerous than doing back squats.
Probably.
Do you think?
I don't know. I just remember I did squats or deadlifts at first when I started going back to the gym a few years ago, and my back was always killing me. I mean, I was like in pain a lot of times, and it could have been just I wasn't doing them right, but I just kind of was like, I don't want to do those anymore. And I guess at my age and my level, the truth is, if I don't really want to do it, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
I had a chiropractor recently help me with my lower back. It was the simplest thing. He said, your hamstrings are too tight. So I've been standing up. I love that this has just become two old men telling each other how to make their back hurt less. But I'll put my leg just there and I'll just like bend over into it for like 20 seconds on each leg, just a few times in the morning, a few times at night. And it's amazing how that's helped.
Yeah. I'm sure that would work for me. I'll probably need to get back into that. I don't know, but I just enjoy being there, you know, and it's good for me. It's good for me because my wife is always telling me, you're a workaholic. You don't have ever boundaries. You know, boundaries are a hard thing for me. Okay. You're always you wake up. The first thing you do when you wake up is you think about what's going on with work before the last thing you do before you go to bed. And she's 100% right.
Oh yeah.
So her and I have been trying to figure that out for me. And I'm not even good at it at the gym because I'll go and in between squats, I'm on my phone looking at stuff or posting something or whatever.
It's the perfect time to do it.
But that's what I figure. I'm like, hey, at least I'm here.
Perfect time, yeah. Yeah, no, I've been really enjoying it. I used to run a lot. I'd get on the treadmill and just run myself into a puddle of sweat. I don't actually do almost any cardio anymore.
Really? Well, you look thinner than last time I saw you.
Well, I'm just eating meat.
Yeah.
That helped. But my wife and I will do laps around our neighborhood. I understand that's not impressive cardio, but that's about it, man. Because I hated it. I hated the cardio.
Do you run or you walk?
We just walk.
That's good.
I guess.
Everybody says that.
Did they?
All the fitness influencers say
everybody says it.
So
everybody knows. That's so funny. But yeah, so I would hate going to the gym because my knees would hurt and I'd run. But now I just go and just do weights. I love that.
Yeah, it's fun, you know, and especially if you can build some kind of community around it that's healthy, you know.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
That's good. You know, I go there and most of the people I see there are from my parish or a parish that I know. Like I said, I see our priest there and you know, we're talking about things related to our faith. We're talking about lifting, we're talking about whatever, and it's just good.
Do you ever have people show up and don't realize that it's a Catholic gym?
Joe would probably say he does, but it's hard for me to imagine that because it's sort of under the radar.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like he doesn't do a lot of marketing to the masses. You know, he just markets to the masses, you know, if you know what I mean. But most of the people that come in there, you sort of have to try to find it.
Yeah.
It's like at the bottom of a big industrial kind of multi-purpose commercial facility. So it's down in the basement. It's real green. And here's the other thing I love about it. There's not a mirror in the place.
Aha. On purpose?
On purpose. He has no mirrors in there. It's not about vanity. It's not about trying to impress people. And you'll see, you know, guys like me in there, you know, older guys. You'll see housewives in there. Yeah. You'll see, and they bring their kids. Like people can bring their kids and just hang out. You'll see like older women in there that are like in their 70s that come in to just work with bands and do different things. But then there's these like musclehead dudes will come in there. And, you know, they're bench pressing 500 pounds and squatting 600 pounds and deadlifting, you know, 700 pounds. So it's like a beautiful little place. But I've just enjoyed it. But I always tell myself, one of these days I'm really going to dial it in. You know, I'm going to get it the perfect diet. I'm going to do this. And I just haven't like completely embraced all that
but
yet.
You don't seem like a kind of guy who would get fat anyway. Are you one of these lucky souls who can kind of eat whatever you want in moderation and be doing all right?
I don't think so. I think I could. I did in 2020. Like I put on some weight in 2019, 2020. Because before I started doing this, one of the jobs I had, like when my wife and I were doing photography full time, we were eating out a lot because we would be going to these shoots and doing stuff. And there was no going home at 9:30 at night and cooking dinner. It was constant eating out. And then when I got a second job in that industry where I was a traveling like consultant, that was always, I'm taking clients to lunch or dinner. I'm going out. So I put on some weight. I look back at that and I go, man, it was kind of out of control.
What do you try to do now?
As far as eating goes?
Yeah.
I would say I'm mostly keto.
Yeah.
I would love to do the carnivore thing, I tried it a little bit because I love meat. I love to smoke meat. Like barbecue is like one of my passions that has nothing to do with my faith. But I'm watching. That's what I watch on YouTube. I watch like barbecue channels. So I'm like, how do I make the perfect brisket? Like when people come out for interviews and stuff, I usually like to cook for people if I can. So I like to do that. But I'll tend to eat like twice a day and try to keep it as low carb as I can. And recently, I guess the biggest change that I've tried to do is I've really dialed back alcohol, you know.
How so?
Well, I love bourbon. So I got a bourbon collection. My wife and I, we love bourbon. So we would go to distilleries and there's other guys in my parish. I guess it's kind of a Catholic man thing, you know. But I mean, I've got a lot of really nice bourbon bottles that we've collected over the years. And we've got a little bar set up in our basement. And my wife and I just love, I mean, we don't drink too much from the standpoint of at one time, like I got drunk once in my life. I was 19, you know, but I just have the sense of I need to dial this down to a point where, you know, it's something that I do for a special occasion because, you know, Matt Fradd comes to my house or a friend of mine comes or we're celebrating something. You know, we had a bottle that we got. It was a bottle of 18-year Elijah Craig that we bought it in 2022, and we said, we are saving this for when our first grandchild is born.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And then another bottle that we said when our son gets married or when our daughter gets married, we have these bottles that we save for these special occasions, you know, things like that.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. I'd like to be where you are at some point, but I just haven't felt the need. I love having a glass of bourbon at night, and I do it every night.
Yeah. Well, see, here's what happened. I was doing that, but then I went in for some blood tests, you know, just random stuff, and my liver enzymes were elevated, okay? And I was shocked. I was like, why are my liver enzymes elevated? And they're like, how much do you drink? And I told them, I said, I was drinking almost every night, just like one bourbon, you know? And I told them, and they're like, okay, well, that's not terrible, but, you know, whatever. And I talked to my dad, and my dad told me, he said, when I was your age, I had the same exact thing happen. And there's something genetic that our livers, I guess, are like super sensitive or some wacky thing. So I think I'm operating with a weird makeup. So I, you know, dialed it back quite a bit, and they got a little bit better. And I've noticed that as I've sort of like ebbed and flowed in that journey, because if it was up to me, I would do exactly what you do. I would just enjoy, you know, maybe an ounce and a half of bourbon every night just to kind of chill. And that would be it. I don't need to drink 3 or 4 glasses of bourbon. I would be sick if I did that. I never want to feel gross after that. So then I moved to this thing. I saw some guy say something about like, if you limit yourself to this little formula, never more than 2, never 2 days in a row with your alcohol. He says you will never have a problem with alcohol. So then I switched to that. Said, okay, so
that's cool. I don't want to do that. I want to drink every night.
Well, I would say this,
and I think this is probably. I know this is probably what alcoholics tell themselves, but I look forward to the bourbon at the end of the day, like I look forward to the coffee in the morning. It isn't. I mean, sometimes I'll go and I'll travel to hotels and I don't have a drink that night, and I don't ever feel like I wish I could have it. I'm blessed in that way. I guess some people really feel like they need it. Yeah. But I just enjoy having a glass at night. But maybe that'll come. Maybe that'll change. You know, I feel like when I got a little bit older, it was weird. Like my reaction to that kind of stuff and food really changed. I used to eat terrible food. You know, I was a Taco Bell addict. You know, I'd eat Taco Bell all the time. And I guess when I hit, you know, I was probably about your age where my metabolism just stopped. Yeah. And I'm like, done. What am I doing? You know, I wore these same pants for 30 years, you know, now they don't fit anymore. What's going on? So I'm like, I got to quit doing that, you know? And then it was kind of like, okay, well, they would say the same thing. You know, when you drink alcohol, it shuts your metabolism down because your liver has to deal with that instead of deal with the, you know, whatever. So it was like I kept hearing the same stuff. So I'm trying to get to that point. But really, I think the thing that's motivating me the most is just I'm trying to get my enzymes back under control. Yeah. So that's you know, and I have some stuff in my you know, my mom had pancreatic cancer, so I'm trying to be a little sensitive to that stuff. Good for you. But good for you. I don't think there's a thing wrong with having a glass of bourbon every night. Yeah. I would totally do that if I wasn't seeing any kind of result from it. It is interesting as you get older, you can either keep living the way you've always lived or change because you have to, right? I mean, again, this is more old man talk, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure how many people are watching and going, finally, but here we go.
Or they're going, what are they talking about now,
Yeah.
man?
Give it 5 years, give it 10 years. Yeah, so like wonderful priest in the diocese, good friend of mine, he'll have these bourbon nights and he'll have like a fire pit and men will come over and we'll have a bourbon, they'll chat till like 10:30 at night. I could have done that 15, 20 years ago. But if I do that now, I won't sleep well. I always wake up at the same time now. I used to be able to sleep in. I don't know if it's old man Matt Fradd. I woke up 5:30.
That's what I think.
But I love that. I love that, but I need to use that as a weapon. I can't fight against it. I got to use it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's like if I tried to say to myself, well, that's unacceptable. Like, no, you're going to go out and you're going to have a few drinks and have a cigar at night and wake up. I'd ruin my life, I think. So you've got to listen to your body as you get older. So now for myself, I got to just one bourbon at night. I can't have 2 or 3. Or if I do, I suffer from it. I don't feel in any way tipsy, but I know it affects my sleep. I wake up, I'm more exhausted. And then when you're exhausted, you're in this place where you're just looking for pacifiers, right? Like you're trying to feel better. Well, what is a pacifier that makes you feel better? Probably not working out and eating well and being kind to your children. You're actually probably more likely to eat junk food, be irritable, waste time on social media. So it's so important, isn't it? As you get older, you got to listen to your body.
It's weird. Like,
so I'm in bed by 9:30 at night. When people invite me, even people I love and want to hang out with, I'm like, I can't do it. I'm an early bird and I got to go to bed early.
Well, you're a lot younger than I am, so I feel like.
Well, how old are you?
I'm 50.
No, I'm 42.
Oh, you're 42. Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's a lot younger than me, but but because when I was 42, I think I was, well, I wasn't quite where you are. But like, as I've gotten older, I feel like I have to be more aware of those things. But here's the other thing that's happening to me, and maybe this is morbid. I'm also looking at my life, at this clock, and I'm going, wait a minute. At what point in time, is the damage I could do to myself, I'm going to die before that would happen anyway.
I love it.
I'm like, if I just started drinking bourbon every night and eating whatever I felt like doing, how many years before that kills me? Is it like more than like 25? Because I'm good with that. I'd rather enjoy like the last part of my life than, because the truth is, I don't want to become one of those guys. I've been tempted to just go like, all right, I'm never drinking bourbon again. It's done. But I enjoy it. Yeah. And I enjoy it relationally with my wife. Like we sit down and we do that together. We have this little place we've created in our house where we sit in these chairs. We have an old school vinyl record player, and her and I have been like collecting records for each other. So I'll go find a record somewhere and she would love that. And then we'll sit down, we'll pour a little bourbon, and then I'll put a record on for her. She'll put one on for me or whatever. And then we just sit, and I know that we're just getting old, but we literally sit and listen to music together. It's not just in the background. We'll sit, we'll talk, but then we'll go, hey, let's listen to this album. And then we'll sit and we'll listen and we'll talk about it. And we just enjoy that time. And here's what I've noticed. You could say, well, you could do that with hot tea. You could do that with, we don't. There's something different about it, going down there and doing that and saying, because you're not going to do that at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but you'll do it at 8 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah, it's a way to unwind from the day. And, since we haven't been doing that lately, it's kind of been, on the back burner, and it's something that I want to do. But I just have to be careful because I really am wanting to be, a good steward of myself. And if my liver's out of whack, then I have to deal with that. But hopefully it's not anything terrible.
I hope so. What was it like for you turning 50?
Man, it was great. My wife was like, what should we do? Should we have a big thing? Should we do you want a surprise party? All this stuff.
When do you want it? When do you want the surprise party?
Yeah.
What time?
Here's what I told her I wanted. I said, for my 50th birthday, here's what I want to do. I want to book a private room at a restaurant, and I want to invite my family, my extended family, and just a couple of friends, and I want to buy everybody a nice lunch for my birthday. I don't want any gifts. I want to just sit in a room with people that I love. I want to serve them, have them served awesome food, and just celebrate who they are to me in my life. And it was perfect.
Yeah.
And she was kind of like, are you sure that's what you want? You don't, whatever. Because I'm always a guy that likes to, like, oh, I want to ride this motorcycle across the country. Or I want to do this, or I want to do that, or what. No, I literally just want to have my family, my sister and her kids, my dad and his wife, and, my kids and a couple of close friends that were able to be there. And there were a few that couldn't make it that I wished were there, but that's all it was to me, because I want to celebrate the people that are in my life that mean so much to me. And I kind of decided at that moment, like, I'm just going to roll with it. Being 50, it's not a big deal, But what I want to do is I want to find a way to, in this space of being fit, I'm not like 80, okay? But I'm also not 30. So sometimes like these younger guys will reach out to me, these younger people in this Catholic space or whatever, and I want to like help them and share what I can share with them, like to take on that role as like, I don't want to call it the dad or the older brother or whatever,
like a mentor role.
I want to help people with that. So, and I want to still do things that I have done. I want to ride my motorcycle. I want to go to the mountains. I want to do all these things that I like to do, but just appreciate them. I think there's like a part when you turn 50 where you go, okay, I definitely have less years in front of me than I have behind me.
Yeah.
I know that to be true. When you're 30, that's possible, but probably not likely. But when you're 50, I don't know too many 100-year-olds walking around.
Right.
So I kind of go, okay, I'm looking at it as the next stage of my life. What does it look like for me to be the most faithful with who I am to the Lord and my family that I can be?
Yeah.
But it just becomes a little bit more serious at that point in time.
I remember when I became 40, I actually found it kind of liberating, because I thought, and I don't know if this is a saying that I'm butchering or not, but it rings true for me that, the first 30 or 40 years you figuring out what cards you have, and then you get to play those cards. And there's no chance of any new cards. This is all you've got. There's nothing more. You will not actually be able to become proficient at this skill probably, right?
Yeah.
And so that's okay though. Now you can just be you and do that as best as you can.
I love that. You thought that at 40?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I feel like when I was 40, I still had a whole nother deck coming my way, because I became Catholic when I was like 42 or 43.
Maybe I'm giving up too soon.
I think you're giving up too soon. I think you've got so many more things in store. Lord willing, we don't know what life has in store. I was at the home of Ryan Delacrosse yesterday,
Oh yeah, bless him.
And
beautiful bride.
And we prayed with his wife as she's ready to pass,
Yeah.
And nobody saw that coming.
How's she doing?
She's at this
I know
point,
she's about to die,
yeah,
but I've heard that she's so beautiful and has somehow accepted it so gracefully.
Well, when I was there, we were there and she was asleep. She's at that stage where they're just making her comfortable, But from what I've seen and talking to Ryan and talking to her mom, it's been this amazing grace that has come into their lives as they prepare for this. And she's just exuded holiness and beauty and grace in the midst of this. But again, who saw that coming? Mm-hmm. So, none of us can look at that and say, we know the outcome. But when you hit to a certain point, you know that even at the best case scenario, there's less in front of you than there is behind. Yeah. And what I've wanted to do more than anything is just enjoy it. And that, I don't mean like hedonistically. I shouldn't say, maybe the right word is not enjoy, but appreciate and be thankful for it. So we have our granddaughter now, and I'm telling you, people say that all the time. Oh, wait to have grandkids.
What's that like?
It is a trip. It is a trip.
Really?
Because here's
Why?
the thing. She looks exactly like her mom, my daughter.
Yeah.
And you know how you always say, and your kids are little, right? They're in that middle place in life. It goes so fast.
I know.
And before you realize it,
I love when people tell me that.
They're
'cause
gone.
I know I need to be reminded of it constantly. Like I just got done telling you that my family life is my favorite thing about my life right now.
And here's the deal, Matt. I love that you said that, because when I was younger than you, but in that kind of place, my family life, I didn't have that perspective. I love them, of course.
Yeah.
But I was so busy chasing being a super pastor.
Yeah.
That it was oftentimes that my family was sort of like in the way of that.
No, I understand what you mean.
I see you in that place where you go, no, this is the best.
It's the best.
It's
no,
the
but
best.
But I understand what you're saying too. I mean, I was like that for years, and I don't know if it was something as simple as, it's more difficult to have younger children. They're a lot more demanding in certain ways.
100%.
It may have been that, but I think there's just a lot of things I didn't see, which I repent of. Like I want to say to my wife, like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for those years that I didn't see you, that I didn't like that your struggles weren't my struggles because I wasn't really even concerned with your struggles. I don't know if you've ever had something like that happen.
Dude, 100%, 100%. And I'm at the point now where it's like, I wish so badly I could go back in time and relive those years with the perspective I have now. But when my granddaughter comes over in the morning and she looks like my daughter and she looks at me and she smiles, I'm like, I feel like, because I feel the same, right? That happens. You still feel like I'm the same person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I've gone through a time warp and I'm holding this precious little girl again. And I just want to soak up every square second I can get of that because I'm so appreciative and so full of love and joy for this little baby. And plus getting to see my daughter be a mother is amazing. She's so good. And my son-in-law he takes such good care of my daughter and it's so beautiful. So I get to appreciate that as a dad. And yet I'm holding this little baby. My wife and I are both like, we just look at each other. We're like, can you believe this? It's amazing. I love it. And I just go, okay, Lord, help me to always feel this way and to be the best grandpa that I can be to this baby, But I'm telling you, it's the best.
My wife and I lived in Ireland. That's where we had our first two kids. And my mum and dad came and visited. And I remember one morning, shortly after he arrived, a day or two in, he was looking at me like, I could die tomorrow and I'd be happy because he got to see his grandchildren,
Yeah.
And I don't know what that's like.
It's amazing. So, it's amazing. I'm so thankful and grateful for it,
Yeah.
But it puts things into perspective, You think where we live right now is okay, but it's kind of a boring place, Iowa. I mean, I'd love to live in a warmer climate like everybody else or whatever, but I think to myself, we could probably move, whatever, but there's no way in the world that I would ever, if they want to go somewhere else, they could, because they live near us. But I feel like there's no more thought of, well, yeah, someday, when we get older, we could have a place on the whatever. I want to be near that kid every chance I can get. I mean, we still have our cabin out in the mountains, and I'm getting ready to go there in a couple weeks by myself, and I'm like looking forward to it, but I'm also going, I'm going to be tortured by missing my family, But it's so beautiful, and it just makes you think about how blessed we are if we get to see those things, in life, because a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, gratitude can only come from a humble heart, can't it? If you're not humble, I don't know if gratitude flows easily.
Well, I think it was Tim Keller, the great preacher, God rest his soul, who I heard, I don't know if he created this, but I heard him say it one time in a sermon. He said that gratitude and bitterness cannot exist in the same place.
That's right.
And that's kind of goes to what you're saying, that, to be bitter is the opposite of humility because you're bitter because something didn't go the way you wanted it to go and it should have.
Oof.
So I'm in the center of that equation, right?
Yeah.
But to be grateful means that you realize that you have something so beautiful that you don't deserve.
How do you grow in gratitude? Because there's been times in my life where I wanted to grow in gratitude, but I realized just saying, hey, I'm really thankful for my health, and I wasn't doing it. I felt like I was just saying words.
Well, I think that the way you grow in gratitude is you take the focus. First of all, you have to acknowledge your own shortcomings, your own sin. You have to acknowledge that you don't deserve anything, which you can sort of say that as, well, that's the baseline, but you could spend your whole life trying to get there. Yeah. Because most of us, let's face it, most of us are entitled. We think that because we've done some good things, you mentioned the whole analogy of God before, and that he's our servant or whatever. We treat him like a butler sometimes, He shows up when we want him to do our bidding, but then he disappears. when we don't. And I found that, and I'll get back to that, but some people are more prone to walk away from their faith when things are going really bad, and they're like, God, why did you do this to me? You shake your fist at God. Other people are more prone to go away from God when things are going good, because they're like, well, I don't need him anymore. But either way, the central error in that is the focus is here. Okay. Gratitude comes from when you remove yourself from that. Say, it's not about me. And you focus on what you've been given. You focus on God. So the more that you realize the goodness and beauty of God and are aware of that, the more grateful you'll be. That's why I love the joyful mystery so much. The first joyful mystery, the Annunciation, the spiritual fruit, the way we do it on the Rosary Crew anyway, is humility. And I think about the Blessed Virgin Mary's response when Gabriel came to her and gave her this news. She never once said, well, what's this going to do to me? How will this affect my life? She didn't understand it, which I think is beautiful too. How can this be, since I know not man? But what is her response ultimately? Be it done unto me according to thy word. I am the handmaid of the Lord. Why is the spiritual fruit of that humility? Because just like you can't make yourself to be grateful, you can't make yourself to be humble. That's the fruit.
I see.
It's the fruit of belonging to God, understanding who he is to you, understanding who you are to him, and letting your identity be wrapped up in him. And when you realize how good he is, how loving he is, and how he's graced you, that even if everything in your life right now, okay, Lord forbid, but if the
Job incident,
if the Job incident happened in your life right now or in my life right now, neither one of us would have grounds to shake our fist at the Lord and say, how could you do that to me? Because of what he's already done by saving us, what he's already done by coming into the world and redeeming us. We are so blessed. It's already happened. It can't be undone. It's something in the past. And when we focus on what God has already done versus what we want him to do for us, or what we think he should be doing for us right now, we got to eliminate that. Gratitude's going to come when we go, it's already done. Get my focus on that, and I live out of that versus, all right, I got a plan, God. Let's get you on board with it.
Yeah. We've been talking about podcasts and aging, and so I think this will go nicely. John Lennon said, you can only ever be that hungry once. And I think that I'm not as hungry as I could be to make this podcast all that YouTube could let it be, right? And I don't want to be. You and I both know how to grow YouTube channels, just more content. It's that easy. So I could have my, our business manager, Melanie, just start lining up the list. I'll do five a week. That's easy. Just take the weekends off. And, we'll figure this out. That's it. That will work. Now, not every interview is going to be as lovely as this one, but hey, but I don't want to. And I think when you're young, it's almost like that pep in your step and that fire in your belly. Like, you're meant to be like that. So maybe some of these YouTubers coming up now in the Catholic sphere, God bless them, all power to them. But I don't know about you. I mean, you've got your granddaughter and your family. I've got my kids, and I just want to be at home with them. I don't want to. You can only be that hungry once. I thought that was a really good line.
I think that's very interesting, and honestly, I think that's healthy. Now I guarantee you there will be people that watch that and they'll go, "Well, it's easy for Matt to say that." He's got this big fancy podcast, or they might say it's easy for Keith to say that. It's funny. I got my little YouTube plaque for getting 100,000 subscribers in the mail.
Congrats!
Thank you. And I it's an accomplishment, and I won't pretend that it's not.
Yeah. Mine's somewhere.
But I think yours is over there, right?
Yeah.
They changed them, right?
Did they?
Yeah, mine's not as big as yours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they made them smaller. They call them, what do they call it? A more efficient size.
Oh.
They're like this now.
Okay.
I mean, whatever. But, I kind of wrestled with that because I sort of have this unwritten rule for me. I don't have it for anybody else. But I've never made a post like saying, hey, I got to 50,000 subscribers. Or, hey, I got to 100,000 subscribers. Because just for me, I think that would play into like some sort of pride. I don't know, But here's what I've learned. Because this happened to me when I was younger, big time. When my youth group went from 12 to 300.
Yeah.
Okay? You'd think at that point in time,
yeah,
that would be like, oh my gosh, you've arrived. that I would be with the attitude that you have.
Yeah.
That says, I don't want to do more. I didn't have that because I was in a spiritually broken place. And to me, my identity was I have to be the rock star. I have to be the biggest, the best. And I know a guy that's got 1,000 kids in his youth group. Why can't I do that? How do I do that? It was because I didn't have this relationship with God dialed in correctly. That's what I need to do, to be accepted by God, right? And I don't want to see that ever happen to me again in this place. And I'm not, to be honest with you, I don't think that it will because I have a completely different take on it now. So it's refreshing for me to see you already have that to where you say, yeah, this is fantastic. But
I always prefer the less flattering interpretation than the more flattering. So I suspect it has less to do with my humility and more that I'm just tired and like my family a lot and want that more.
But that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, it is.
We all want something. That's,
yeah.
We're never called. Now it'd be different if you said to me, I don't want to do that because I want to sit home and play video games. Or I want to, I just want, and if your life had no meaning or purpose outside of that and you just wanted to be lazy, but no, you're choosing something that's beautiful, which is actually your vocation.
Yeah, I want to waste time with my family. And I don't want to overstate this for people who might be feeling discouraged right now. Like there was a lot of time where I didn't feel that way. Like I find it frustrating to be around little children. I found when the house was messy, I found that really frustrating. Even experienced anger, went to therapy over that. Like stuff like that for sure. But yeah. Now's a lovely season.
I want to tell you about Hallow, which is the #1 downloaded prayer app in the world. It's outstanding. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd. Sign up over there right now and you will get the first 3 months for free. That's like a lot of time. You can decide whether it's useful to you or not, whether it's helpful. If you don't like it, you can always quit. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd. I use it. My family uses it. It's fantastic. There are over 10,000 audio guided prayers, meditations, and music, including my lo-fi. Hallow has been downloaded over 15 million times in 150 different countries. It helps you pray, helps you meditate, helps you sleep better. It helps you build a daily routine and a habit of prayer. There's honestly so much excellent stuff on this app that it's difficult to get through it all. Just go check it out. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd. The link is in the description below. It even has an entire section for kids. So if you're a parent, you could play little Bible stories to them at night. It'll help them pray. Fantastic. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd.
It's beautiful. And I want to tell you, drink that in, man.
Okay.
Drink that in. And this is all great, right? This is great.
Yeah.
But it's God's.
Yeah.
God is doing a work through what you're doing and praise him for that. But I'm happy to hear that your identity isn't so wrapped up in the success of this podcast that you would say, sorry, Cameron and the kids, I have to do this. I got to figure out how to take this to the next level. I've got to take this thing I got to whatever.
Yeah.
Because if you're driven by that, then here's the dirty little secret. If you're driven by that, you'll never be happy because it's never enough.
Yeah.
And we've all gone through that to one degree or another with something in our life where we think that if we just hit this mark, now we'll be fulfilled and happy.
No, and that's why when you just said to me,
moved.
What you said earlier in response to me was there might be some people who think, oh yeah, Matt with his fans. And I had this shock. I'm like, wait, does anyone actually think that? Like I'm so far removed from that because I'm here and there's always more to get. And so I don't feel like I have a big podcast. Isn't that silly?
Matt, I will tell you something.
I'm not asking you to tell me.
I know you're not.
Yeah.
I know you're not, but they do.
Yeah.
They do. You'd be shocked how many people, since I went on your show the first time, even before I went on your show the first time, people are like, blah, 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 whatever.
But yeah, I think YouTube subscribers, that is a number more for the creator than anything else. It's a ladder to climb because like I do, someone could have 1,000 subscribers and their videos are doing way better, get way more views and interaction than someone with 1 million subscribers.
That's true.
And so I really, so it's not like, well, if you get a lot of subscribers, you get a lot of views. No, there's some big subscribing accounts. Like I think the morning show has like 2 million subscribers or something, whatever. One of the morning shows, but they get like 100 views or something.
That's crazy.
So I just think they put that number there because they know that we want to see it climbing.
Yeah, I think it's, I think it's okay to have things to help motivate you and to help you go, wow, this is, if anything, it's to keep you to a point where you can be like, wow, thanks be to God. This is helping reach people.
Yeah.
But I think other people make a bigger deal out of it than we do sometimes. And I think that's healthy, because if we make too big a deal out of it, then what does that say about us?
Yeah.
Like,
is this your full-time thing now?
Yeah.
Cool. When did that change? Or
Well, it started in 2020, which was awesome because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, I quit my job. I had 2 jobs, okay? And, our business, our photography business, and then my other side job, which was a full-time job of being a traveling consultant for a photography lab. And I started to get all these different speaking engagements and these requests, and I was doing these little things, but I was running out of time in my life for that. So I, had to get to a point where I'm like, what am I going to do? What's going to happen to me in this place? And I was sort of going, well, I either have to say, no, I'm not doing any more ministry things, or no, I'm not going to work, 70 hours a week. And, it was interesting because when I first became a Catholic, doing ministry was never on the table.
Yeah.
I was never going to do that. So it was almost like when I got to that, and I remember my priest said, 1 year, Keith, 1 year, do nothing. And he wasn't like twisting my arm. He was basically saying, you have a year before I will allow you to start, and I was kind of like, great. Well, at the end of that, it was crazy. At the end of that year, all this stuff started happening. I had written this book that I got the idea for literally 1 year after I came into the church. Took 6 months to write it, self-published it. And around that time, the talks began to, I accepted a couple talks and threw them up on YouTube with literally no promotion, no idea. The thumbnail for my conversion story is literally the self-picked thumbnail of YouTube. It's horrible. And the description and the title was just Protestant becomes Catholic. Upload.
How did that do?
I think it's got almost 500,000 views.
Wow.
And that was really the beginning of everything for me,
Yeah.
So it was not long after that some people came into my life that made it possible for me to do.
You've got a lovely
what I
setup
do.
right now.
Oh,
I like it a lot.
Thank you. It's just in my basement in my house.
Yeah.
I mean, I prayed about that too. Like, Lord, what should this be? And because I did photography, I understand lighting. I understand that kind of stuff. And we've tried every little which way we can do to make it be what it is. And I'm finally at the point where I say, I'm happy with how it is right now in that space. Maybe someday I'll have a bigger studio or whatever. But the truth is, like you mentioned, I just don't want to. I would receive that, but I don't want to make that happen.
Yeah.
So all this started for me like in 2020. And it's just grown in different ways. I do a lot of parish missions and so travel and speak. I've written 2 books now and do the YouTube stuff. And I kind of question whether I should do like these in-person interviews, because you're already doing these. I'm like, the world doesn't need another Matt Fradd. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing what you do. I'm doing something kind of different. I'm focusing more on conversion stories, and what I've learned is so interesting. I've learned that when I keep that focus, it doesn't matter if my guest is really well known or not known at all. The biggest video that I've done was a person who has literally no social media following at all, has no presence at all. He's a young dad who is a theology professor at a small Catholic school. He came over to my house for dinner one night, and I said, let's just film an interview. And we did, and it was the first one I ever did like that. And it just blew up, and that's what it's been. And meanwhile, other people that have a little bit more notoriety, have great conversations, but they haven't had the same impact, you know?
Well, it's funny. I had Gabby after hours.
Oh,
on the
yeah.
show. Wonderful fella.
I brought him out. Yeah.
And I love that his episode has more views than Jordan Peterson's.
Yeah.
No offense to the good doctor.
Yeah.
I want his episode to have more views too, but,
Yeah. That blows me away,
Yeah.
I mean, I was watching that on, when he came on, I'm like, dude, and I had Gabe come out and one of the things I love about it, and I'm sure you're the same way too, is I just love getting to meet people and hang out with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been awesome.
No, and I think that's something people said that to me in the beginning. Maybe not with this, but with other things. Like back in the day, I started this sort of website that educated people about the dangers of pornography and things like that. And I was trying to decide, should I do something like this? And I remember someone saying to me, well, I mean, does it exist? Because you don't want to reinvent the wheel. And I think, no, you should not be too worried about I mean, that I can see how that advice could be good.
Yeah.
But if you need a car, you're going to need more than one wheel. If you're going to need a tank, you might need a whole series of things. So I'm thrilled that you're doing interview shows, that Lila's doing interview shows, that if someone out there is like, well, maybe I wouldn't mind talking to people in my area, do it.
Yeah.
Let's flood YouTube with beautiful conversion stories. And
that's how I feel. We need more, not less. And like sometimes people that want to do rosary things will contact me because of our daily live stream that we still do. And they'll be like, hey, Keith, we want to do a rosary thing. Can we team up? And I'll say no. Because you're supposed to do your thing. You know, it's not because I'm like, no, this is my territory.
Yeah.
It's because I'm like, no, I do it at this time. You should do it at a different time. Like to me, you know, we talked about the Rosary Crew briefly. We've been doing it for 5 years now. What I want to see happen with that is I want to see like little chapters get started up by people. So we're multiplying it, you know, and it's becoming larger. And I feel like that with the Catholic space, I'm super sensitive to the idea of not trying to be another version of somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that's important too, because I think we're wired that way sometimes. We see somebody that does something that we admire and we go, oh, how do I be like that?
Totally. And that's totally understandable. Yeah. But I remember someone saying to me at one point when I started speaking, like, just don't be a Jason Everett knockoff or a Scott Hahn knockoff. Just be. It was actually Chris Stefanik who said to me, just go out there and be big, awkward you. I'm like, oh, I can do that.
I can do that.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point. And that's what I love about YouTube, and I love that about this space is, you know, you can do whatever you want. And when people try to tell me what I should do, I always just encourage them and say, man, maybe you should do that.
You seem really passionate about that.
That's what I'll tell them. I'm like, because I will have people that will reach out to me and say, well, you really should do the rosary this way, or you should do this, or you need to start that thing like that. And I'm just usually like, it sounds to me like God's put that on your heart. Maybe you should do it. And, you know, I don't know if that happens, but I think we need more, not less. Yeah. But what we also need is to do it well. You know, we need to honor what we're doing to make it the best that we can be. Yeah. And I think that's part of being that good steward with what God's given us, you know. And man, you've certainly done that, you know. And I think that I'm excited to see where this continues to go for you, as you know.
Or if it stops now, that's okay too. May the Lord use these little interviews to bring in who he wants to bring in. Again, it's a lot of pressure taken off when you're like, well, Jesus, you do it. I remember listening to the founder, or not the founder, but he was the head of Life Teen back in the day.
Okay.
If you remember them, maybe you don't. Do you remember Life Teen?
I think I was a Protestant pastor back in the day, so.
It's yeah.
But I think I heard of it.
Well, anyway, someone said to him, do you realize that you're only in, and it was something like 30% of parishes? I don't know the exact number. And he said there was this weight that just fell off his shoulders. He went, awesome. Like, are we supposed to be in every parish? I don't think so.
Wow.
And it was almost like it was the opposite. He realized. And so I think something similar, you know, people are watching right now and they have their own YouTube channel and they get 100 views or 200 views or 1 million views. It's like, okay, that'll do.
Yeah.
What, are you supposed to reach everybody? Is that your goal? Like every human being with eyeballs has to watch your show? No. So whatever it is, it can be. And the Lord can use it.
He can use it, and he can work through you. But you have to have, again, it goes back to that whole thing of gratitude, somebody, and not being entitled. Sometimes we'll do this, and I'm just speaking for myself. You know, you'll do something, and you'll think, because I did this, it should do this.
Yeah.
And then when it doesn't, we get mad. You know, or I get mad and go, oh, but you know, I spent this money to bring this person out, or I did this, or I made that, or that looks really cool, or I put that light over there, or I bought that lens, or whatever. It looks awesome, this and that. Now, therefore, this should happen. And if it doesn't, we can get worked out. And I've talked to a lot of young creators or new creators who they step into this space and they get frustrated very fast because they don't understand that this isn't something that is guaranteed. You know, you can't just make a video and have a YouTube channel. You know,
that's why, back to what we said earlier, I think it's so crucial that you do, it sounds like a cliche, but cliches are cliches for a reason, that you do what you love. Because when I started my podcast, Patreon didn't yet exist. So there was no clue in my mind about making money through people supporting. I also didn't know 2 years into YouTube that you could make money on YouTube.
2 years it took?
I hadn't even signed up. I didn't know.
You didn't monetize?
No, I had no idea because I'm an idiot.
That's hilarious.
I was walking with Cameron Bertuzzi. He's like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "How do you do it? I want to know how to do that."
That's so funny.
My point was, I think the reason I never got frustrated, and this isn't, and if I started it today, maybe I would get frustrated because I'd be seeing how people are kind of making a following or making a living doing it, right? Because I had no clue that was even an option. I was just excited to do what I love doing. Like, I want to have conversations with people.
Yeah.
Like, I love doing that, and I love to get better at that. And so, yeah, I mean, that it's hard advice to give to people, especially, as you say, like, when you said you've got over 100,000 subs, what are you at now?
I think it's like 115 or something like
for
that.
You. Yeah, so I know it might sound patronizing to say to people who are just starting out, like, don't worry about the numbers. But if you, or how about this? You can worry about the numbers, but you'll just get tired quicker and just frustrated quicker.
You will, and you'll never, I mean, so I don't know. I remember thinking, okay, when can I quit worrying about this? Yeah. And I remember thinking, okay, when I get to 100,000 subscribers, something, and I sort of, it wasn't that I was like trying to outsmart that. It was just, I was trying to negotiate with the bad part of myself.
Yeah.
To say, you can shut up now.
Yeah.
Because I really want that guy to shut up. Okay. Yeah. So the part of me that wants to compare myself to other people or to whatever, I don't like that guy. So I finally, when I got the plaque or whatever, I was finally able just to say, all right,
shut up.
You can shut up now.
Yeah.
So honestly, like at this point in time, I don't even give a flying rip anymore. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, and because what's next? Maybe YouTube like builds that in. You're not going to get the other one till you hit 1 million.
Well, that is it. Isn't that crazy?
There's nothing between that and that.
You would think.
And what is it anyway? It's a piece of, whatever.
But it's funny because before 100,000, you think once I get 100,000, that'll be fine. And now I'm like pushing 700,000. I'm like, I'd love to get to 1 million.
Yeah.
But I know that once I get to 1 million, I'll be like, well,
exactly.
That'll satisfy me for a little bit. It's like everything.
I remember when your channel hit 50,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
I remember when that happened.
Wow.
And
I don't.
I do. I think it had to have been like in 2020, 2021, something like that.
About it, yeah.
But I remember when that happened, I was like, Stell, did you see this? Matt Fradd just got 50,000 subscribers. That's amazing.
But then when you hit it,
then I was like, what the heck took so long? But I try not to get hung up on that. And the reality is, if I cared about that much, I would have to change everything I do about my YouTube channel because the stuff I spend the most time on gets very low views compared to what it should. We talked earlier, I guess back to the beginning of this conversation about how to grow a YouTube channel. I think both of us know that. Mm-hmm. And you've done it a different way. You've done it without doing the, let me tell you what that guy said. Let me tell you.
I've fallen into it, and God have mercy.
But that's never been like the main part of your life. That's never been what you've been known for.
Whenever I did it, it always felt like an uncomfortable thing to put on.
Yeah.
And I don't think I had bad intentions, like most of us don't think as we're sinning, hey? I think I was like, this has got to be... Because that's the other temptation. Like, just because you've got a platform doesn't mean you need to say everything that irritates you about the church.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I remember that. I made that video a long time ago about Strickland because... And it was
what was that?
It was a video about, I just called it Hot Take, the Bishop Strickland perspective.
And what did you say?
I just said, I don't have one.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that now, yep.
Because people were emailing, you got to make a video about this. You got to react to this.
That's right.
You got to do this.
And the point of your video is, no, I don't.
No.
I owe you nothing.
I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And to me, that felt really good just to shout that into the camera because I could. I have a lot of opinions, Matt. Mm. There are a lot of things I could say about things and about people and about all that stuff. I could, but I just don't want that. I don't want to give into that, Mm-hmm. So the part of me that's like more subscribers, more views, more supporters or whatever, I just have to shut that guy up, So when I hit the 100,000, I was like, okay, maybe I can shut him up with that now. So leave me alone, dude. And it's almost like a joke to myself. Like we hit that, okay, a big deal, because I know it's nothing. I know that it means literally nothing. But I mean, I'm proud of it in one sense, but it hasn't changed my life. I don't walk around with a different air, like, oh, by the way, I don't like wear it around my neck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like big deal. But I think sometimes people when they're starting out, they have this predetermined outcome. That's the other thing. You and I both, when we got into this, we didn't have that predetermined outcome already set up. Mm-hmm. You just wanted to talk to people and have good conversations. I just wanted to share how happy I was about being Catholic. And that's, I think, the beauty of it. And here's what I want to do. And I think you're there. I think, I want to keep that. I want to always be that guy. I want to always be the guy that's like, man, I'm most excited about becoming Catholic and what that means. So let's talk about that. So when people come in that are like, oh, you should do this or you should do that, or hey, I wrote a book, let's talk about it, or whatever. I find myself just swatting that away.
That's good.
Because I want to stay focused on what am I doing that's helping people on that journey. That's what I want to do more than anything. And sometimes I get off track. Sometimes I'm stumbling through that, and I can look at things and go, well, that really didn't have anything to do with that. That was dumb.
Yeah.
But I think we have to give ourselves permission to do that too. Yeah. Because your analogy earlier about the spiritual life, if my morning prayer isn't standing up and exactly perfect, then I'm not going to do it. We could do the same thing in this space. If I haven't nailed this perfectly, I should just quit.
Yeah.
I think we have to give ourselves that grace too, which again goes back to I'm going to feel more freedom to do that if I get your support.
Yeah.
Like if you or any other person on YouTube or whatever, if we support each other, if I see someone that I respect who just says, Keith, that was an awesome video, man. That gives me the freedom to feel like, okay. But if I know that if I just violate some kind of Catholic dude code out there by saying not the perfect thing 100% of the time on an interview with someone on the spot, they're going to lambaste me and make critique videos and reaction videos and all this stuff, then it makes me more timid. It kind of cages me a little bit, and I don't want to fall into that.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is like we need to encourage each other so we can like, man, you know what, Matt, you got that hunch you want to pursue? Do it. You got that thing that's on your heart that you want to speak out, but you're a little afraid of how it might go over. Just do it. We're here for you. We got your back. You're part of the team. You're part of the crew here, and we're gonna lovingly build each other up in this space because we've got a world out there that hates us. And that's who we really need to be worried about, not one another tearing each other down. They're tearing us down left and right. We need to like lock arms as creators, and move into that space with knowing that, hey, I'm going to have support, not be destroyed.
I think it's really important too that we have a few people in our life that we go to and give them permission to call us out.
Oh,
that's hard.
Huge.
But it's huge. I would give that to you.
I would give that to you as well.
I'd be really honored if you called me up one day and went, hey, I love you. I'm not sure if this is where you want to go. Like, I don't want you to call me up and yell at me. But you know what I mean? Like this. But I've had people who are like, hey, dude, I think you got that wrong. I'm like, what do you mean? I've had a few, and in the beginning, you don't like it sometimes because of my pride. But then later you go, that must have taken some kind of cojones to call me and do that. So I have a few people in my life who have explicitly said, please, I beg you, call
Praise
me
the
up.
Lord for those guys and girls, whoever they are.
Because you just said at the start of the show, like we don't have a lot of accountability. We don't have any accountability.
We really don't. That's the scary thing.
And of course, we can disagree with the people who correct us, but it's important that we put, and not just people in our life that we know will agree with us all the time, but people who we're like, okay, this guy's pretty objective.
Yeah. I've been really blessed with that because, I mentioned earlier, the people that came into my life that made this possible, it's like the stewardship people that brought me into this when I was working 2 jobs and I sat across from David and he was just like, what would your life look like if you didn't have to do that? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he brought me into this world, and into this team with guys like Devin, who are there, and others that are in my life that, they do meet with me and we do talk about, and I know that if I step out of line, there's going to be a hammer coming down, know, but I know that it's a loving hammer. I know it's not like, all right, they don't have an agenda. They're there to help.
Yeah.
But we all need people like that in our lives, and I think if those people, because here's what can happen. We all want to please somebody, don't we? Mm-hmm. And it just depends on who we're looking to please. And if you're chronically online in a toxic environment and you see the people that love to criticize, subconsciously you're going to want to please them because if they don't criticize me, that means I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
So then what you do is you start to give them that power in your life. And you think, okay, well, they've criticized X, Y, Z for these particular things. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So because I don't want them to criticize me because they're the criticizers in my life, right? That can so subtly happen to us. But if you surround yourself with people that you know, but here's the problem. They don't love you and they don't know you. Well, oftentimes they're complete strangers on the internet. So if you have people that do love you and know you and that give you the benefit of the doubt,
That affirm you.
and you know that they want what's best for you ultimately,
Yeah.
then you can trust them when they come to you and say, yeah, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah.
What are you thinking with this? Or maybe this isn't the right time, or, and that we need to give thanks for. It's hard sometimes.
It's hard, but honestly, I'd feel more offended if I found out that you saw something I did that was definitely wrong. I'm like, I just didn't want to say anything. I'm like, what? I'd be frustrated with you. Like, please, I need that.
Yeah.
'Cause what do I know what I'm doing? I don't know what I'm doing.
I'm the same way. I think what I'm still looking for in all of this is a mentor. I'm looking for someone that has been where I am, that can walk me through the next 10 years of my life, or this part of my ministry journey or whatever, people talk about spiritual direction, this and that. And I've never found that, I've had good, godly people in my life that have helped me, but that's something I'm not, so you can pray for that for me. Because what I would love more than anything is to find some people who have been where I am now and have come through it, that I could say, please help me to see what mistakes I'm making. When I was in the photography world, one of the most helpful things was, and you'd pay big money for this, to sit down with the photographer that you respected, that was a level that you aren't, and for them to look over your work and critique you. And I remember I hired this guy to come in and do that one time, and paid this guy thousands of dollars to come up to our studio and do a critique session and whatever, because everybody else was like, oh yeah, it's great. And I'm like, no, it's really not. Like, it could be a lot better, you know? And he was able to sit down, and I remember where he told me, he said, pick your best 10 images. I only want to see 10 images. And I'm like, all right. My wife and I did this too. We had a couple friends, we got together and we did this, and we got our 10 images together, and we thought he's going to just go, my work is done. This is amazing. Here's your money back. You guys are amazing.
Oh,
like, how did you do that? You know, the second we pulled up the images on the screen, he was like, okay, boom, 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 boom. I mean, it was just like in his breath, because he had been everywhere that we'd been. And he was able, like, I learned so much through that experience. It made me such a better photographer. It changed my life in that way. And I would love that experience in this space, but it's hard to find someone that will do that, that you know loves you like that.
Are you talking about how you convey what you're conveying, how you interview people, or are you talking about the technicalities of lighting and filming and all of it?
I think for me, what I'm looking for more is the big picture. Okay? The big picture of what should you really be focusing on in your ministry? You know, because I'm a little scattered right now with what I'm doing. And I think that it would be helpful to have someone who could help me sort of look down and say, okay, and I have a couple specific issues that you know, I don't get into publicly that I would love to talk. Maybe I'll talk to you offline about it. Or I could talk about it online since we're doing this interview. I don't care. That I wrestle with continually, and sometimes I go, how does this guy handle that? Or how does this woman handle that? You know, I don't know what the right thing to do is.
Yeah.
And should I really be focusing so much on this part of what I do? Am I missing the boat with what I'm really supposed to be doing? So I think that for me, it's a little bit more of an upper level thing to where I want someone to look down from a 30,000 foot view and help me sort through some of that stuff. But I'm always open to helpful suggestions about, hey, you know, you could do this to make your thumbnails better, or you could do this to make your lighting better, or whatever. Because I certainly don't think I've got all of that figured out.
Yeah. Yeah. These are interesting times. I mean, when I was a kid, when you were a kid, you probably didn't think that one day you'd grow up and essentially run your own thing. I think everyone just assumed that they would be an employee of someone
Absolutely.
else. But and I understand that most people are still employees of somebody else, but increasingly there's this new crop of quote-unquote influencers who have no accountability and no one to tell them what they don't want to hear, except everybody in the comment section. You know, that's an interesting thing.
It is, isn't it? You almost wonder how long can that sustain itself, and will the church someday offer a solution?
My thought is, might sound like a cynical take, but people go where the money is easiest to be had. Always, at all times. That's it. All right. So if 50 years ago, the money was easiest to be had in doing X, Y, and Z, right? And maybe one's morality might keep them from doing certain things, but provided something wasn't immoral, then we'll take the easiest way to get the most money. I think today the internet is the way to do that for a lot of people, whether it's selling things on Etsy or Fiverr or YouTube or Instagram, right? So as that happens, I think what you're going to see is a vacuum that we actually needed. Like, we actually needed people to build our bookshelves and fix our toilets and fix our swimming pools and whatever. And those prices are going to go through the roof. So if I want someone to do any kind of helpful labor for me that I kind of need, like I need someone to fix my fridge. I don't need to listen to Matt Fradd talk about whatever he's talking about, but I need someone to fix my fridge. I think money is going to flood over there. And then so I think what we're going to start seeing is more and more people gravitating to the real and less of the virtual, the kind of the trades, because that's where the money will be.
I think that's a great point.
I also think, and then my last point, is that as AI increases and gets more sophisticated, we're not going to be sure if we're actually watching a real podcast or not.
Oh, man,
that
that's
the individual
scary.
looking at me, I can't be sure whether that's actually him or not, because it just mimics his face. Just like it can learn your voice, it can now learn your face and facial expressions and when to put those facial expressions to certain points that you're making. Of course, you're not making them. You just told AI what to say for you. And then what you'll start to see happen is people will actually prefer to have a more grainy visual image, perhaps, less 4K, because that will signal this is authentic.
Real.
But then people will get onto that, and that too will be part of the AI thing. And at that point, I think, we're going to see prices go through the roof for in-person entertainment, like stand-up comics and bands and poetry readings. What do you think?
This thought just hit me of like, can you imagine a world, and you sort of just laid it out, where a person types in, show me an interview between Matt Fradd and Winston Churchill on this topic that lasts 3 hours, go.
That'll happen.
And then they spit out an interview that's a virtual face-to-face interview between yourself and a historical figure. I mean, my daughter showed me this video on YouTube the other day of like paintings of historical figures coming to life and looking around, and it was so wild. I hope it goes the direction where you're saying, where in-person contact becomes more valuable to people, because my fear is that it won't.
Yeah.
My fear is that we'll become more isolated and more segmented, because that's what we can control and that's less threatening. And we all know that when you get into the world of the real, it never matches up to the fantasy. Fantasy always beats reality. So, I mean, we've all heard the saying, never meet your heroes. Because when you meet that person, they always let you down. So imagine if you could meet them without having to meet them. So I hope that eventually that we go that direction. I think we're in a moment in time right now. I think we're in a snapshot of this space where ministry, especially in the Catholic world, is being done this way. I hope the church somehow has an answer to this. You know, I mean, Brandon and I were talking about this yesterday, like, how wouldn't it be wild if there was almost a diocese that itself was the internet, and there were, because us lay people, like, you know, we talked about, we have no accountability ultimately, other than whether people watch our videos or not. But there's no one who can come over me or you ultimately and say, you can't do this anymore. But let's just pretend for a second there was something that the church created, a digital diocese or whatever, and they appointed people to this diocese, whether it be priests, deacons, or maybe they even had lay evangelists or whatever. And they had the resources, they had the oversight, they had the ability to do that, and they wanted to do it well. And they brought these people into this space to say, okay, here are the people that we have set into this world to go through this.
This is kind of Bishop Barron's idea several years ago.
I know.
Remember?
I remember him talking about it, but
and he got blowback for that. And I think in an ideal world, I like the idea, but I also, man, I know as Catholics we're meant to be subject to the bishop, let's say, and so if the bishop doesn't like what I'm doing, then I suppose it would follow that I shouldn't be speaking in the name of Catholicism in any way, shape, or form, I suppose.
But the problem is, who can say that, you know?
But I also think that part of the reason a lot of people are desiring a beautiful liturgy and the reason they know so much about the church is because the lay people they are standing up.
I agree. I mean,
and teaching others, and so to put the kibosh on that sounds scary.
And then the other thing is, you know, the internet, the Catholic influencer culture, or whatever we call it, just becomes like a shootout, you know. And it's like you're going to do what you're going to do, and if people watch, they watch. If they don't, they don't. And I tell people that all the time. Like, you don't have to watch this. No one's putting a gun to your head. If you don't like what I'm saying, or if you don't like what this other person is saying or doing on the internet, just turn it off. Stop watching. You don't have to. And that's my answer to a lot of the critics, you know, out there that are always criticizing certain people. I'm like, if you really hate that so much, stop drawing attention to it. Just turn it off. So there's sort of an accountability built in there. But unfortunately, you know, our base human desires oftentimes aren't the right ones. And if that's what works, that's where we go. Yeah. So you said earlier, we go where the money flows, but what's the currency of today? Attention.
See, that's it.
You know? So
because as you were speaking, I was thinking of an analogy between how maybe say 20, 30 years ago in the United States, people were not as health conscious as they were today. And you could imagine someone healthy back then saying, oh, I hope this changes. You know, I hope things get better. And someone saying, I don't think it will. I think people love bad food and they're going to continue to eat it. All right, well, that doesn't seem to have happened. It seems like there's a big movement now of people who are like, I don't want to be fat. I don't think people should be unhealthy because of the food they eat, the poison that's been foisted on us, etc. But my fear is that our pride and our desire for attention is much stronger than our desire for high fructose corn syrup. And if that is the case, then we're screwed.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Which I think goes back to like what we have to do is find a way to encourage each other to be the best we can be, to find a way. And you know, here's the thing. You and I can't stop anybody from doing anything, okay? That's never my goal anyway, like whatever. But what I can do, and I need to do a better job of this, I need to do a better job of going out of my way to be encouraging and publicly praise people and going out of my way to support people that I do see something that I think aligns with that.
Yeah.
You know, I think if we all started doing that, again, I think that's going to be the high tide that raises all the ships.
Truthfully is a groundbreaking Catholic AI app built to help you know, live, and defend the Catholic faith with clarity and confidence. Whether you're navigating a tough conversation, deepening your understanding, or looking for daily spiritual guidance, Truthfully is your companion on the journey. It's like if ChatGPT went through OCIA, got baptized, and made it its mission to proclaim the truth of the Catholic Church. But Truthfully is more than just a Q&A tool. It's formation in your pocket. Take audio courses on topics like the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Eucharist, Purgatory, and why the Catholic Church is the one founded by Jesus Christ. Each course is designed to be accessible, engaging, and deeply rooted in the teachings of the Church. You'll also receive daily audio reflections, short, powerful meditations to help you grow in prayer and stay grounded in your spiritual life. Already downloaded by thousands of people worldwide, Truthfully is transforming the way we learn, share, and live our faith. One question, one course, and one prayer at a time. Start your 7-day free trial today. Download Truthfully on the App Store.
All right, we got some questions from our local members. Max says, just want to express my gratitude to Keith for his Catholic feedback interviews. By the way, that's a terrific name.
Oh, thank you.
Right? Because of the amplifiers?
Yeah.
I just caught on.
Yeah,
I just,
all right.
Just made that connection.
I was really proud of that.
It is really good. It's funny. You just need like a little thing, don't you? Just like a little connection, and it seems it works. All right. He finds them very moving and have been very encouraging in my own move from Protestantism to Catholicism.
Thank you, Max. Glad to hear that.
All right. Adam says, did you hit a point where it felt disobedient to not be Catholic?
100%. Yeah, I did. That was a magic point when I realized that it wasn't anymore about just a this or that, because I'm living in that world where it's like Jesus is showing you these options. It got to a point where he was just like, you want me, here I am. And that was kind of the linchpin for me, was when I felt like I was more afraid of disobeying God because of what I would miss out on. There's a point at first when you're afraid of disobeying God because you're afraid of what you're going to miss out on, okay? Mm-hmm. To keep what you have, right? Think of the guy who sells everything for the treasure hidden in the field. He's like, what's more important to me, what I have or this treasure over here in this field? I really like this. The rich young ruler is like, this is better than Jesus. But then there's a point when you go, man, I know what's over there is better. Do I have the guts to let go of this? Uh-huh. To me, it was like, I'm afraid of what I'm not. For once, I was afraid of like, what if I become Catholic? What am I going to miss out on with my, my career, my ministry? But then it became, when I saw how great it was, what will I miss out on if I don't do this? I'll miss out on being Catholic. I'll miss out on what God has in store. So then it was like, I don't want to be disobedient.
Similar, but not the same. You know how we can sometimes be tempted to keep our options open all the time. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking that as I was discerning marriage, because the temptation is like to keep your options open. Like there's always someone out there. Like maybe you could marry somebody, and look at how many possibilities there are. But you keep all your options open, like you miss this. Like you actually don't get anything. It's different, I know, with your situation, but
100%. But to get into a place of disobedience, I think everybody kind of walks through that in a different speed.
Yeah.
But eventually you will get there. If you're a person who's discerning Catholicism, God isn't just offering you a different color carpet. He's offering you the fullness of the faith. He's offering you his very flesh and blood. He's offering you himself. And there will come a point, and the Catechism talks about this, when it talks about, people say, do you have to be Catholic to go to heaven or whatever? If you have that revelation that it's the truth, you are obligated to follow it. Where that comes into play in that journey, I can't say.
Yeah.
I can only say for me, I got to that point, and then it was about, all right, I couldn't remain out of the church and still be a Christian anymore and be faithful.
Mm-hmm. Paul says, what is the practical role of the average lay Catholic in apologetics? How much are we called or expected to know?
That's a great question. I think the role, you have to separate that from the world of Catholic apologetics, because the reality is we should all be in the world of Catholic apologetics. We should all, every single one of us, should be prepared to give a defense for the joy that we have, right? That's what the scriptures teach us, to give an answer, right? That's what apologetics means, is an argument, like an apology, a defense, an explanation. Every Catholic should be able to do that. Now, whether that means that you have to understand all of the arguments, so to speak, there's different levels of apologetics. There's the apologetics that's all about arguments. There's the apologetics that's all about devotion, and there's the apologetics that's just about example. And we're all called to the first one, or to the third one. We're all called to be an apologist in the way we live our lives. So I think we have to start there and recognize that if people look at our lives and they're not drawn to the Catholic faith as a result, then we're not living up to what we're supposed to be. But does that mean that you have to become an expert on everything? I don't think so, but it couldn't hurt to learn a little bit more. And I think the way that you discern that is you have to ask yourself, what are the questions that keep coming to me over and over from people? If in your conversation, because they're seeing your faith and they want to learn more about it, they keep asking you things about Mary or the papacy or the Eucharist, then you need to have answers for those things.
This is a good question that I'm about to ask you because it came up in our interview. Marty Staffnick says, do you ever feel burnt out from discussing the same apologetic topics repeatedly?
You know what? Yes and no. I feel burned out if I feel like I have to make a YouTube video about it, but I don't feel burned out when I'm sitting across from a real person who doesn't know or who is just discovering this for the first time. And I think that's a key. If all we're doing is just making our apologetics about an argument, and I have to put out this argument, then yeah, we're going to get burned out. But if our apologetic is about meeting a need in love, which is what ministry is, that's a whole different deal. So I think we have to get out of this mindset of I'm here to put forth my argument, and then instead have the mindset of I'm here to help someone discover the truth. It's about them. It's not about me. And I never get burned out talking to people sitting down about this stuff, but I often do get burned out if I feel like, hey, someone made a video, react to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do, yeah. Marcus Flavius says, I have found quite a few Protestant friends at my campus. We have a Bible group together and connected really well. Should I try to help them find the Catholic Church? Please give some concrete advice, what approaches could be helpful and which to avoid.
100% yes, you should try to help them find the Catholic Church. And the way that you're going to do that is by showing them devotion and joy in your own life. Oftentimes we do one or the other, but we need both. You need to show them that devotion and that joy so they can see the beauty of the faith in your life. I think your Bible study, you have to navigate through that. I don't know the dynamic of that Bible study. Is it one guy who gets up and just tells you what the truth, like the Bible study leader? If so, that could be a little problematic when you come across areas of disagreement. If you're not allowed to voice those or whatever, if that's going to open up a can of worms and you're going to get in trouble, you might have to deal with that. But if it's one of those Bible studies where you all say, hey, let's open this and talk about it together, now you've got an opportunity to share your perspective with them from a Catholic point of view, which is going to lead to those conversations. So I would say that your involvement in that Bible study is going to depend on the dynamic of it.
Hunter says, what has your best place you've camped while living in a van? Or what was your best place you've camped while living in a van? And what's been the craziest experience so far?
Oh my gosh, the best place? I would say a place called Hanna Park near Jacksonville, Florida, was my favorite place that we ever camped. It was awesome. Second place would be near Corpus Christi, Texas, out on one of those islands. The craziest story? Well, probably when we broke down right after I interviewed Marcus Grodi at the Coming Home Network offices, and we were driving home on the interstate right outside of Columbus, Ohio, and we broke down on the side of the interstate and we're stuck there for 4 days. That was pretty crazy.
4 days?
Yeah.
How?
Because it was a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And of course, nobody was open. No mechanics were open until Monday. They ordered the wrong part, which they didn't get it fixed until Tuesday. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we got to leave. So we were stuck at this little dumpy motel on the side of the interstate.
Is this you and your wife?
My wife and I and my son, Drew, was with us on that trip.
Yep.
And he had to get home he was taking the motorcycle safety course, and he had to get home. He had just been overseas in Qatar for his military deployment, and we convinced him to go with us on this trip. And when we broke down, he's like, I got to get home. So he literally hired an Uber to drive him to the airport. He didn't even really have a ticket.
Yeah.
And then he got to the airport in Columbus, stayed at the airport on the rooftop all night until he could get a flight the next morning to fly back to Chicago, and then had to have somebody drive to Chicago and then drive him back home. It was a huge, crazy deal, but he was determined.
Yeah.
But we were stuck there, which was kind of wild. And
do you sleep in the van?
Yeah,
or?
it's a motorhome van. It's like a little Sprinter van with a motorhome in it.
Okay.
And it was funny because we're broke down. We literally have no transportation. We walked from the mechanic to this hotel. We have nothing. We're stuck there. And all these people are that, because we do our live stream. Oh, there's this beautiful church over here. I'm like, I don't have a car. Somebody come and pick me up, But everyone's telling me all the places I need to go, We're like, well, if we can't walk there, we're not going.
Elias says, have you noticed a trend of Protestant apologists using equivocation when talking about the sacraments? I hope that's the right word they say. Some apologists will say they claim they believe in a kind of sacrament, confession, Eucharist, etc. But then when it comes to how Catholics practice it, they fall back on the old ways of denouncing Catholics as idolaters or legalists. It makes it difficult to argue the Catholic position because they'll just say, oh, I agree with you about this, but then refuse the practical application of the sacraments. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, I think the best place to notice that would probably be with the Eucharist, where you will have a Protestant say, well, we believe it's the real presence of Jesus too.
Yeah.
But when you really dig deeper you discover the differences. So, for example, you might say that, but then ask them, well, what do you do with the Eucharist after the service is over? After, do you just throw it away? Do you dump it down the drain? Like, what happens to it? And what happens in your mind if you drop some of it, or who can receive it? Do you equate that to what St. Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians about receiving unworthily? So oftentimes the distinctions become more apparent when you dig down a little bit deeper and ask some of those practical questions. But yeah, I've seen that. Now, of course, with things like marriage and baptism, there can be an equivocation if it's done according to the proper form and matter. But when you get into things like the Eucharist or confession, like you'll hear that sometimes, oh, well, I confess my sins to my buddy, that's the same thing. And I will always say, well, okay, well, does your buddy have the authority to extend forgiveness on God's behalf? And they'll go, yes. And then I'll say, well, does he have the authority to not extend forgiveness on God's behalf? Well, no, of course not. Well, see, that's only part of that verse in John 20:23. Whoever sins you forgive are forgiven. Whoever sins you retain are retained. Mm-hmm. So they oftentimes won't go all the full way there because they'll say, well, yeah, we can be forgiven because, confess your sins one to another that you may be healed. But without the sacramental aspect of it, we lack the authority that goes behind it.
Mm. Okay. Agile Elephant says, I am currently studying John Henry Newman. I would enjoy understanding the impact of this man's thought on Keith, if such was the case. What works and ideas of Newman were particularly influential?
I would say none that I'm aware of because I never really read him as I was on my journey into the church. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to pretend to be a Newman expert. So I'm going to go with none.
Good answer. Sue Ann 48 says, I grew up an evangelical Protestant but was received into the Catholic Church 10 years ago. As an ex-Protestant, I feel specially placed to reach evangelicals for the Catholic Church, but at the same time, I am very aware, as cradle Catholics may not be, of the extreme fear and suspicion of all things Catholic that Protestants often grow up with. The denomination I came from has a particularly long list of martyrs at the hands of Catholics at the time of the Reformation. The Mennonite Brethren, a brand of Anabaptists. Any advice on how to navigate that?
Yeah, I think the answer there is to really dig into the truth of those things. There's a lot of things that are put out there as true that are not. Now, I'm not saying that there weren't people that were persecuted by the church in some way, but I know a lot of that is exaggerated. I get told these figures of, 98 million people, and I'm like, are you sure it wasn't 97 million? I mean, people just throw these figures out there. And the other thing you got to remember too is there was a lot of persecution at the hands of reformers too. The reformers drowned the Anabaptists as well. So if your criteria for whether or not you're going to be part of a group here from Protestant or Catholicism is they never persecuted the other, then you're stuck because that's happened all the way around. So I think you have to dig into that. Plus, you'll also learn the nuance of what the church does versus the civil authorities that we're doing, because it wasn't as if you walk into a Catholic mass and the priest was standing there with an axe chopping people's heads off. These things that took place were done by the civil authorities. Now, they were linked to Catholicism in some way, but it's not quite the picture that is presented as though the Catholics were running around like hunting people down, finding them in their basement, reading the Bible and executing them for that. So I think that you have to really look into that and know the truth behind those things.
Glotto Jr. says, what's the best way to convince Protestants that God instituted one church without calling them heretics?
I think it goes back to the question of what are the claims being made by your church today? Does your church claim that it's directly descendant to the apostles, founded by Jesus? There's not too many churches that even make that claim. So if you're going to talk about the idea, and then the other thing is, should there only be one church? I think it's easier to get there. One Lord, one faith, one baptism. I will build my church. Matthew 18 about the example of church discipline. How can that be lived out if there's more than one church? I think it's easier to get to the place where we say, yes, there should be one church. Then the question is, which one is it? how many even make the claim that they are that church? Because a lot of the Protestant churches, they reject that premise. To them, church is just anybody who's a believer anywhere is part of the church. So if you're even saying, I want a church that connects back to the apostles, you're already in a smaller, you already have a different premise you're working from, which I think is the correct premise. But there's very few people who are making that exact claim. But you can look for it in history. You can look back and just look at the objective history of the origins of the Catholic Church to find that there.
Christian P says, do you have any suggestions for those living in rural areas with fewer resources on how to try to get the adult men more engaged in their faith and more active in their parish?
Wow, that's a big question. That's a big question. I think it starts small with just getting together with some men and talking about it and helping these men take ownership in their faith and in their families. I don't think the answer is a church program where you go, okay, we're going to have a pancake breakfast next week. All the men show up for that, or we're going to have a cigar night next week. That's fine. But I think the answer really is to get men to care and to understand their role, and then to give them opportunities to exercise that role in the parish.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty hard to do from scratch. But I think that's one of those things that men have to step up and own those roles and move into them. But how do you start from scratch? Well, it starts by going to where they are and gathering some men that are like-minded that want to do that together, and even just start with something as a men's group, a men's Bible study, a men's catechesis or something like that, to where you can begin to build that community. And then once you have that community, it's kind of like, okay, guys, what can we do to really help shepherd this parish along under the authority of our priest?
I grew up in a very rural town in South Australia, and I'm just trying to apply that question to myself and what may have worked, let's say, to get my dad into the door or something like that. And I think one of the nice things about being Catholic is there are certain things that you can do that don't require any feeling or any spontaneity. So it's not like, hey guys, we're going to get together. I don't know why I have an American accent when I do that. That's what that was. But there's something neat about being like, hey, we're going to have just a few fellas, we're going to do adoration for an hour.
Boom.
Nothing else happens. You don't have to feel a certain way. You don't have to put on a good face. Nothing. Just come and kneel down. We're going to pray the Holy Rosary every morning at 7 a.m. And, if you can find two other fellas to do that with you every Friday, 7 a.m. before work, praying the Holy Rosary, and maybe you do that a couple of times, and then maybe you go get a coffee after the Rosary. And then if the three of you do this for a few weeks, you might say, what if each of us tried to bring one more fella? But then maybe it's sort of like the YouTube thing we were talking about earlier, where it's like, well, if your expectations are sufficiently low, then you can't be upset. It's just 3 men, that'll do. 2 men.
Yeah, I think that's great, and anybody can do that. But I think being willing to just start with what you have, and form some kind of brotherhood and community around your faith with these men, that will snowball over time. But again, we go back to the whole, is it going to be perfect right away? No. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do something. So start with 1 or 2 guys. I love it. Getting together before work one day and praying the Holy Rosary or going to adoration together, and then just see what the Lord does with that.
Mike Kupris says, will Keith ever join me on the guitar sometime? He wants to jam with you.
Sweet.
On a slightly more serious note, he says, how has Keith's perspective on music and especially praise and worship changed since his conversion?
Good question. My perspective on praise and worship music, I still like praise and worship music.
Yeah.
I really do. My perspective on it, though, is I don't like it during Mass. Right now, I go to the Latin Mass typically. So for me, that's praise and worship music too. It's just different. It's just better.
More appropriate for the liturgy.
But what, I don't know. I feel like I'm not the guy that's like, like when I see like the Seat Conference or whatever when they're worshiping, I'm not one of those guys like, oh, what are they doing? It's too Protestant. I'm like, no, praise the Lord.
I know, I'm like you.
If this is helping these kids worship Jesus in that, and what's interesting is a lot of the lyrics and even some of the Protestant quote unquote worship songs make more sense according to Catholicism than they realize, because they're all about the presence of God. They're all about being with God. And when you combine that with Eucharistic adoration, you just go, oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I think it's fine if you do that in like a non-mass environment, but for me, I don't like anything like that in mass personally.
Joe Ward says, what would you say has been the biggest topic you find yourself discussing with your Protestant friends and family? Since I converted, my good friends from my old church have essentially gone back to small talk when we used to have such deep theological conversations, but he doesn't anymore.
I think probably with the ones that will talk about it with me, which I feel like that's becoming a smaller group of people, because over the years we've sort of gone there and they kind of go, okay. But I just had had lunch with some of my best friends the other day I don't see very often, and we got into all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was all having to do with basically how we know what Christianity even is. So the whole issue of what is the church, how has God chosen to reveal himself, which becomes a question about sola scriptura. And then it turned into, well, who can be saved? The question that was on the table that day was, do you have to be a Roman Catholic to be saved? And we had a fascinating conversation around that. So I have friends that want to talk about that. I don't really have like Protestant friends that want to talk about weird, things about the liturgy or whatever. It's usually like higher level things, or they'll just ask me questions about, well, do you guys believe this or do you guys believe that? But most of the people in my life, I've kind of had those conversations with. So we don't find ourselves going back to them. We just live our lives out in our faith. So really the conversation becomes about what's God doing in your life. And I feel the freedom to share that completely. Like I don't have to sanitize it for them to offend their Protestant mindset. I don't do that at all. I never did that.
Yeah.
But I like that place, Matt. I like being at the place where I don't have to make everything an argument, where I can just share, this is what God's doing in my life. This is where I'm excited about my faith right now. And this is what's really cool. And I don't have to go, so you can't do that as a Protestant. You know what I mean? So when you can get away from having arguments and just live your life out with, again, joy and devotion, I've found that to be way more edifying.
I also think it's important to say to our friends that we're trying to evangelize, or maybe not necessarily explicitly say, but they should know that we want to be their friends because we love them, not because they're a project we're working on. I remember Bertuzzi, who's who's actually officially getting confirmed, like by the time this podcast releases. I said that to him, like, of course I want you to convert, obviously. But if you don't, like,
yeah,
I love you. Like, I enjoy you. You're a cool guy. I'd love to keep talking. It'd be weird if you thought that I was only interested in having a friendship with you because I could maybe convert you.
But the problem is people think that, but I want to be an apologist. But remember, that's a level of apologetic right there, is a loving relationship with someone where you're not hiding your faith. You're living it out in front of them, but they're part of your life. And everything doesn't have to turn into an argument. Sometimes the best apologetic is that life that is boldly lived out in Catholicism that isn't attached to a challenge or an argument. Because when we do that too much, people put up the walls to protect themselves from that. And eventually one of those walls is distance. And they say, I don't want to be around you anymore, because every time we're around, we fight, we argue, and it just doesn't feel good. So I'd rather not get together with you. Or when we do get together, we're just going to say, look, we're not talking about God or our faith. I never want to have a relationship like that, Matt.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of relationships with Protestant friends, but I never want to get to a point where they say to me, Keith, you know what, let's just not go there. But if I'm combative and challenging in everything I do, that's what will happen. And I know that because it has happened. So rather, what I want to do is live out my faith and be able to say, hey, man, what's going on in your life? What's the Lord showing? And then listen and actually be engaged in that. And then I will receive that same opportunity from them. And it's been amazing how that approach has opened so many doors, because when people feel that you're a safe person they can share things about,
totally,
they might say, wow, you know what? I've always wondered about that.
Yeah.
Why do you guys do this?
Yeah.
Why do you guys do that?
I want to give a shout out to Gavin Ortland.
Okay.
You know Gavin?
I do.
Or of him.
I don't know
if
him
you're
personally,
familiar,
but
the reason I bring up Gavin at this point in the conversation is I was in Rome, last year, And I saw on his feed that he was going to Rome to give some lectures or something. And so we got together for a coffee. It was my first time ever meeting him just outside the Vatican. And what I loved about him is we just had a really honest conversation about what it was like being on YouTube, what it was like getting into debates with Catholics or Protestants, depending. And I remember I said a couple of things that he could have pounced on if he wanted. And he just didn't. And it was just this beautiful, to your point about being safe. I trusted as I was talking to him that if I say, I don't really understand this part of Catholic teaching, I'm trying to, that he wouldn't have like been all weird about it.
Yeah.
He would have just went, yeah, okay. Like, and that was like, okay.
Think about what that means, Matt. People who do that are doing that because they're secure.
Yeah, that's right.
When we're always turning everything into an argument about every little thing, that becomes way more about us than them, because we have to be right.
We've all had the experience of the Jehovah's Witness or the Mormon missionary at our door, and they're there for one purpose, and good for them, you know, but they're not there to get to know you, except that they want to try to bring you into their faith. And it's awkward, and they know it's awkward, so I think they don't even really do that so much anymore because people aren't terribly receptive to strangers showing up on their door with Bibles. But you know that unless you're open to their religion, you're not going to let your guard down because you know that they're going to pounce, or, you know, and that's awkward. And so I think in that position of being defensive, you wouldn't naturally express any doubt in your own religion or anything like that, or any interest in theirs, because you know what they're there for. Yeah. So just don't be weird. I think that's something I've grown in. I think with Cameron Bertuzzi from the get-go, it was like, of course I want you to be Catholic. Like, obviously. As opposed to pretending I'm just asking questions and I don't really care that much. And I mean, you know, but rather than being all kind of like secretive about it, it's like, yes, obviously. But if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about it either. And meaning what you say.
Yeah. And not making that the condition of your friendship.
Yes.
That's important. But that's hard for people who in their own faith are insecure or are just trying to win points, you know, with people on the internet, especially like, you know, all right, you know, I told this guy something or whatever, you know. And I think that, again, we don't have to hide who we are. They don't want us to hide who we are. They want to know more about what that means. Yeah. But they're not going to listen if we turn that expressing of ourselves and who we are and what we mean into an attack against them every time we open our mouth. Yeah. They're not going to want to know anything about us anymore.
Yeah, I was just thinking if there was like an apologetics course at the end of which you get a certificate, congratulations, you're an apologist. I think the first course should be someone like Jimmy Akin or Scott Hahn or somebody asking you questions, and they begin with really easy, you know, like who founded the Catholic Church, how many sacraments are there, you know, that sort of thing. And they get increasingly difficult until you don't know and you are forced to say, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You have a guess? No, it's completely wrong. Are you sure you know? I don't know. Congratulations, you passed the first. Like, I honestly, the best thing you can do sometimes is go, I have no idea. Mm-hmm. Man, that's beautiful, actually. Because why should you? Like, I don't know how many people are being converted by ChatGPT. I mean, if you go to places like this to look for information, you might get good information and it might help you. But the point is, people, when they come to you and ask you questions about the faith, they're not looking for an encyclopedia. They don't want. If they want an encyclopedia, they go to an encyclopedia. They want to know, like, why do you think that? It's that interpersonal thing.
I was having a conversation with a young woman recently who was thinking about Catholicism, you know, and whenever I get into those conversations, I'm always trying to gauge what is the point here, right? What is going to help them? Are they looking for information, or do they want to know how it works? You know, and again, we got back to this whole issue of I have these misconceptions of what Catholicism is. I don't know what it is. So again, that's where the catechism comes in handy. I think most of your apologetical. So with this question about how do I, you know, with these Protestant friends, if somebody really wants to know, you know, and I did this the other day with my good friend, I said, look, we can get so far, but if you really want to know what the Catholic Church teaches about things, this is where you can find the answers, you know, because I'm also not Catholic Google either, where I want to be like, or I'm not available. I can't do that. I can't be that for everybody. And sometimes I'll get emails from everybody that'll just be like, they'll email me a list of questions, and I don't have time in my day to respond to everybody's questions when those are things that can easily be found by just Googling those. You're going to get there. But what people really want is they want to know how it works out in your life and what this looks like. And you can't find that from ChatGPT.
Yeah. Keith, thanks very much for taking the trip.
Oh, man, it's been
really
an honor.
Appreciate it. Tell people how they can learn about you, see your podcast, maybe books you've written, whatever else you want to talk about.
Yeah, so my ministry is called Down to Earth Ministry, and it's down 2 earthministry.org. And that's really the hub of everything. But on YouTube, I have 2 channels, just Keith Nestor, and that's where I make a lot of different videos related to the faith. But then my Rosary live stream is on the YouTube channel, Rosary Crew with Keith Nestor. So if you go to those places, you'll find probably everything you want from me and much more. But I just want to thank you, Matt, for having me down, and I'm just so thankful that, you're my brother in Christ and my brother in the faith. And I know that I can count on you and you can count on me as well. If there's anything I can do for you, and thank you for your good work here.
Yeah.
It's been an honor to be a part of it.
All done. Thanks.